Chapter 678, Mrs. Zhou, Concubine Gu. One punch was not enough. When he saw Steward Zhou fall to the ground, he went up and gave him 2 ruthless kicks. "It's all your fault, old thing. Not only did you embarrass me, but you also wasted so much money. You dog, I'll settle this score with you when I get back." With that, he ignored Steward Zhou and got into the carriage, letting Ah Feng drive him away quickly. Steward Zhou was still lying on the ground. Many people around him saw the commotion and started pointing at him. Steward Zhou buried his head under his arm and snorted twice. However, his eyes were filled with resentment as he gritted his teeth. After a while, he got up and staggered back to the Zhou mansion. Zhou Dafu had returned home earlier. After calming himself down on the way back, his mood was finally not so bad. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered the residence, Mrs. Zhou walked over and said, "Where did Master go so early in the morning? Little June is in trouble again." Next door, before she could finish speaking, Zhou Dafu interrupted her fiercely. "Trouble, trouble. He only knows how to cause trouble all day long. What kind of mother are you? Do you know how to teach children? I've been busy enough outside every day. It wasn't easy for me to get home. Can you save me the trouble?" He was extremely frustrated. Seeing that he had already walked out of Mrs. Zhou's courtyard, he stopped in his tracks and turned around. "If you have nothing to do, you should think about how to teach your son well. I'll go to Concubine Gus." With that, he left. Mrs. Zhou's face suddenly darkened. Seeing that he had disappeared after turning around, she was so angry that she kicked away the stool under the corridor. "Am I the only one who has a son? As a father, he doesn't care about his son and blames it on me. If old Madam hadn't doted on June like that previously, would he not listen to me now? He's good. He hides under women's skirts all day long. Concubine Gu, a widow with children, can be a treasure. He hasn't seen a woman in 8 lifetimes." She was so angry that she spoke without thinking. The nanny beside her hurriedly stroked her back and advised softly, "Madam, don't be angry. I'm afraid Master is in a bad mood today." His words were too harsh. "Madam, don't take it to heart and be angry with Master. Otherwise, won't that Gu be benefited?" Mrs. Zhou sneered. "I don't know what that Gu woman did. She's already so old, but she still has Master under his control. I reckon Master is just feeling that she's new. After a while, he'll know that Aunt Gu, a country bumpkin, is extremely vulgar and will only embarrass Master. At that time, we don't have to do anything. Master will send her away." Mrs. Zhou turned around and returned to her room. It was probably because of the nanny's persuasion that she was not as angry as before. However, she still frowned and said, "It's been nearly a year, but Master hasn't grown tired of her. Didn't I ask you to keep an eye on her? Has there been any abnormality on her side recently?" The nanny shook her head. "She's very well behaved and doesn't go out. There's no abnormality at all." Mrs. Zhou was angry. "Keep a close eye on her. Report to me if anything happens. Also, keep a close eye on the servants she orders around." "Yes." Gu Yundong did not know about the Zhou mansion. She had just received 1,000 taels of silver from Zhou Dafu and was in a good mood. There were many people taking care of the shop, so she planned to go upstairs to entertain Madame Dai. Unexpectedly, as soon as she turned around, she saw a familiar figure walk in. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 680, Will he take revenge? "Auntie, you've been here for a long time. If you don't plan to buy anything, can you make way for the customers behind you?" Gu Yundong spoke with a smile, but Madame Sun's face turned red. She looked at Gu Yundong and then at Su Changshan. She stammered, This shop belongs to you? Could it be yours?" Madame Sun was speechless for a long time. She wanted to ask Gu Yundong why she had to find a former thief to be her assistant in such a big shop. However, she could not ask. She could even feel the people around her looking at her, as if they were pointing and saying something. She vaguely heard someone say, "Don't come in if you can't afford it." It's been a long time, but they didn't buy anything. Don't tell me they want to take advantage of the chaos to get something. That's right. Otherwise, why would the boss come over to warn them? Madame Sun had always treated Su Changshan as a thief. She mocked and ridiculed him every day. Who knew that one day, she would be criticized as a dirty person? She was so angry that she wanted to retort, but the two neighbors beside her had already turned red. They did not want to complicate matters at all and pulled her away. Yundong sneered and said to Su Changshan, "Ignore them. Continue working." Su Changshan nodded gratefully. "Yes, boss." On the other side, Madame Sun only broke free after being pulled out of the shop for a long time. Without those strange gazes, her temper rose again. "What are you doing? What's there to escape? We didn't steal anything. Why should we be slandered by them?" The other two looked at each other and said, "It's obvious that the boss doesn't welcome us. Why are we still staying there? Making a fool of ourselves?" Madame Sun widened her eyes. "What do you mean by not welcoming us? She runs a shop and does business. We're guests when we go in. We're going to spend money. She has to treat us respectfully. Even if she doesn't welcome us, can she chase us away? Why not? Do you think she cares about our one tael of silver? Didn't you hear that when those people were paying the bill just now, it was dozens of taels of silver? You said it yourself. The customers coming and going in this shop are either rich or noble. Even the prefecture magistrate's wife is here. What are we?" Madame Sun was a little indignant at first, but when she heard the words, "prefecture magistrate's wife," she suddenly reacted and her face turned pale. She didn't dare to say anything else. If she had made a scene in the shop just now, she would have been the one to suffer. Madame Sun started to feel uneasy and walked home in a daze. On the other hand, the other two people said softly, "I didn't expect the boss to really not mind the kid from the Su family's bad reputation and arrange for him to work in such a big shop. Do you think Su Changshan will become rich in the future? The customers of this shop will all be nobles in the future. The people he knows in the future will be amazing. We didn't seem to treat the Su family well in the past." As the two of them spoke, they could not help but take another look at Madame Sunday. The one who treated the Su family the worst was Madame Sun, who was the Su family's neighbor. In the past, she had sabotaged Su Changshan's job several times and badmouthed the Su family everywhere. In the future, if the Su family wanted to take revenge, the Sun family would be the first to suffer. When the two of them thought of this, they subconsciously kept a distance from Madame Sunday. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 681. The shop's second floor. Yundong saw that all the troublemakers had left, so she went to the second floor in a relaxed manner. On the second floor, Nie Shuang was talking to Madame Dai. Little Yunka was writing calligraphy. Madame Dai liked her very much and would guide her from time to time. Yundong raised her eyebrows. It was very rare to receive guidance from the prefecture magistrate's wife. Her footsteps could not help but lighten. Nie Shuang was the first to see her and quickly waved her hand. "Are you done? What were you talking about?" Yundong walked to the chair opposite them and sat down. Little Yunka looked up and saw that it was her elder sister. She immediately smiled and continued to write. However, Nie Shuang said excitedly, "Auntie and I were talking about your house." Sister Yundong, can I come here often in the future? I think the decorations here are especially exquisite, and this chair is comfortable and beautiful. There are books here, and there's such delicious milk tea. I'll call my good friends over. We can also play chess and write. It's much better than staying at home. Don't worry, we want eat and drink for free. Yundong smiled. The second floor was indeed not bad. When she was renovating, she saw that the spatial storage was quite big, so Zhongguang suggested that they also put goods on the second floor. Gu Yundong thought about it and refused. The floor below was already big enough. Her goods were displayed on the first floor. If the guests wanted more, they could take the goods from the storeroom in the backyard. The second floor could be used to entertain guests. Some people with extraordinary statuses could be invited to the second floor for a meeting if they wanted to buy a lot of things. Therefore, the second floor was equivalent to an office. There was also a small cubicle at the back with a bed inside that could be used to rest. There were a few more tables and chairs today for the ladies because the shop had just opened. However, looking at it like this, it was indeed like a modern cafe. The environment was very quiet and comfortable. Wasn't the meaning in Nie Shuang's words that she was bringing her little sisters to the cafe for afternoon tea? However, Gu Yundong did not intend to treat this place as a cafe. After all, it was inconvenient. If you want to bring your friends over, you'll naturally welcome them. However, the shop is downstairs. Not only is it noisy, but what if someone doesn't know etiquette and comes up to offend you? The stairs to the second floor were in the shop. If the shop assistant was too busy and did not notice, it was possible for anyone to run up. Moreover, if the second floor became a cafe, she would not have an office. Most importantly, it was not worth it. It was not profitable and would cost a lot of time. Madame Dai, who was at the side, also considered this. Shuang, don't cause trouble. Which of your friends isn't a young lady from a rich family? They have a lot of people serving them when they go out. Yundong's shop isn't even big enough for them to stand in. When the time comes, no one will dare to enter the shop downstairs and it will affect her business. Nie Shuang thought about it and agreed. She was a little dejected and sighed. But it's too boring to stay at home all day. Gu Yundong thought for a moment and smiled. Perhaps you can open a tea house like this yourself? Nie Shuang was stunned. Open it herself? Even Madame Dai's eyes lit up. She really liked the decorations here. It was comfortable and enjoyable. The two of them looked at Gu Yundong in unison. The latter blinked. Why were they looking at her like that? Nie Shuang grabbed Gu Yundong's hands and said excitedly, Sister Yundong, you're right. We can open it ourselves, but, if you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 682, Cooperation to open a shop again, but what? Gu Yundong had a bad feeling. Nie Shuang chuckled. But even if we open a tea house like this, we can only prepare some ordinary tea and snacks. There's no such delicious pearl milk tea, such delicious dried fruits, and such delicious and fragrant snacks. What's the difference between that and an ordinary tea house? It won't attract customers at all. Gu Yundong moved back. So, you want me to supply you? No, what's the point of supplying? Nie Shuang moved closer to her. Let's work together to open a shop. Cooperation? Gu Yundong fell into deep thought. Nie Shuang nodded vigorously. That's right, that's right. Let's work together to open a shop. I'll offer money and effort, and you can come up with ideas. Let's earn money together. How about that? Madame Dai was unhappy. Everyone has a share. Don't forget about me. Nie Shuang turned her head and said happily, it's even better if Auntie can participate. I only know some young ladies. Auntie knows those rich ladies. No one can compare to you in terms of connections. With Auntie around, our business will definitely become even more popular. She was a little excited just thinking about it. Nie Shuang was only 15 years old, 2 months younger than Gu Yundong. She was the eldest daughter of the Nie family and had been served by someone since she was young. At this age, she only ate, drank, and played. Occasionally, she would read, write, and learn some zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. However, it felt especially boring. It was as if her entire life had passed without any waves. When she was old enough to marry someone, she still repeated the same thing in the residence. She had heard about Gu Yundong from Nie Kong. She knew that Gu Yundong had escaped from the famine. Eldest brother rarely praised people, let alone a little girl who was about his age. But eldest brother said that he admired Gu Yundong. She could bring 3 family members from Yongning Prefecture to Xuanhe Prefecture at such a young age. Not only was she safe, but she also ensured that her family was unharmed. Even an adult man could not do that. At the very least, Nie Tsong could not guarantee that he could do this. At that time, Nie Shuang really wanted to see Gu Yundong. Later on, Gu Yundong actually sent New Year's goods over, and they were white sugar that made her father's eyes light up. Nie Shuang did not dare to imagine that a little girl who was a penniless refugee a few months ago would actually have such achievements in such a short period of time. She admired Gu Yundong, especially. She heard from Aunt Ke that Gu Yundong had come to the prefectural city to open a shop. Before Aunt Ke could explain her intentions, she insisted on coming over to take a look. Then, she saw such a huge shop. Therefore, Nie Shuang's heart began to stir. However, Gu Yundong resisted the urge to roll her eyes. No, the two of you were so excited, but you didn't seem to have asked for my opinion. Nie Shuang finally realized that she was too quiet. She quickly calmed down and asked nervously, Sister Yundong, are you unwilling? Madame Dai also said, we know that you've just opened a shop and are very busy. If you want to cooperate, you don't have to worry about anything else. We're here. You just have to tell us what we need to do. That's right, that's right. Well, look for the shop. Well, pay the silver. You just have to use your mouth. Madame Dai said, there's no need to specially look for the shop. I happen to have a shop there. The location is not bad and the environment is good. Coincidentally, it was vacated some time ago. Recently, I've been thinking about what business to do. Really? That's great. The right time, the right place, and the right people. It's the will of the heavens. Gu Yundong was speechless. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 683, Misunderstanding. After speaking to Nie Shuang, she turned to look at Gu Yundong. Gu Yundong's mouth twitched and she said, actually, you can buy my recipe. When the time comes, before she could finish speaking, she saw Nie Shuang shake her head so hard that the pearl hairpin on her head almost fell off. She said very seriously, no, you have to participate. Why not? Nie Shuang did not speak, but Madame Dai, who was at the side, seemed to have read her mind. She could not help but cover her mouth and laugh. I know why. She doesn't have confidence in herself. She's afraid that she'll mess up the shop that she has worked so hard to open. Gu Yundong looked at Madame Dai. Don't we still have you? Madame Dai shrugged and said frankly, I can still be of some use to deal with those madams and young ladies, but I'm afraid I can't operate a shop. Otherwise, why do you think my shop is empty? Gu Yundong felt terrible. She did not need to care about anything else. Didn't they know that it was more tiring to use the brains? Nie Shuang blinked and said pitifully, Sister Yundong, look, you just have to come up with an idea. Well, do whatever you say. When the time comes, you'll take 50% of the money we earn. How about that? Not so good. Why don't you take a look at how old you are? Why are you still acting cute like Inca? Madame Dai was more rational. She analyzed the situation from the point of view. Yundong, actually, this won't do you any harm. Your business will only grow in the future and you'll get to know more and more people. When the time comes, the customers in our shop we're cooperating to run will all be your connections. It did make sense. If she opened an elegant and comfortable tea house, with the recommendation of Madame Dai and eldest Miss Nia, the people who went would be some women of high status. The prefecture magistrate was working for the emperor, and the Nia family had a close relationship with Aunt Ku. Speaking of which, Gu Yundong was the one who had taken advantage of them. Madame Dai and Nie Shuang looked at each other. Seeing that she did not say anything and was probably thinking about the feasibility, they immediately stopped talking. Since they were doing business, she had to know the pros and cons. Actually, when Madame Dai saw how cautious she was, she heaved a sigh of relief. If she was like Nie Shuang, whose eyes lit up the moment an idea popped up, she would not be at ease. After a long time, Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. She met their eyes and said, "All right, let's cooperate. But we still need to discuss the division of the profits. All right, you'll take 60%. Gu Yundong, no, wait. You've misunderstood me. She rubbed her forehead. I'm saying that 50% is too much. You said it yourself. You'll be responsible for the shop, the silver, and the hard work. It's also your job to attract customers. I'm just giving an idea. It's not appropriate for me to take so much. Yes, yes. Even Dai nodded. If you don't participate, we won't dare to open the shop even if we pay. However, Gu Yundong insisted on refusing. It might not be a problem in the early stages, but what about later? When the business became big and there was a conflict, her shares would be the primary problem. Moreover, there was no problem with Madame Dai and Nie Shuang now, but what would their families think if they knew? Besides, among the three of them, she was the weakest. Therefore, from the beginning, she should make it clear about the problem of the shares so that they would not fall out over such things in the future. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 684, Promoting the villagers. Seeing that she was determined, Madame Dai and Nie Shuang had no choice but to take a step back. Since the three of them were cooperating, it was naturally best to distribute them equally. However, it was not easy to divide, so Madame Dai, who had offered the shop, took up 40%. Gu Yundong and Nie Shuang each took 30%. Madame Dai did not agree. In the end, it was Gu Yundong who said that if anyone caused trouble in the shop in the future, only Madame Dai's identity could suppress it. Therefore, taking 40% meant that she was the most responsible. Madame Dai did not say anything, but she looked at Gu Yundong with admiration. This girl was so young, but she was very mature. No wonder she could go from a penniless refugee to her current achievements in such a short period of time. At this moment, she was especially confident that the shop that was about to open would definitely be popular. Since the decision was made, they had to discuss the details. However, Gu Yundong had just opened his shop today and was very busy. She did not have time to discuss it. Therefore, she could only make an appointment tomorrow. The Gus has just opened. I still have to come and keep an eye on it for at least the first 3 days. Where is Madame's shop? Let's go over tomorrow morning and discuss how to repair and decorate it. Madame Dai took a sip of milk tea and said, since we're going to open a shop together, Yundong, you're treating me like an outsider if you call me Madame again. Gu Yundong laughed. Then I'll be like Nie Shuang and call you Auntie? That's good. Madame Dai was satisfied and said, all right, there's no hurry to open a new shop. Naturally, we have to wait for you to finish your business first. I'll get someone to clean up that shop first. It's a mess inside. Let's go over the day after tomorrow. Sure. Gu Yundong nodded. She suddenly thought of Feng Danning, who was still in the prefectural city, and asked, I wonder if Auntie has any familiar carpenters? There were definitely some, and those carpenters who could catch Madame Dai's eye were all capable and serious. However, Madame Dai looked at the house in front of her and thought of the counters and shelves under the house. They were really different from what she had seen in the past. She immediately understood. I'm not familiar with wood carpenters. I have to go back and ask our steward. However, I see that this house is well repaired. I wonder which master did the job. If it's possible, Nie Shuang nodded at the side. Yes, I also think that these tables and chairs are well done. Then master's carpentry skills are good. Let's hire him. Gu Yundong nodded. To tell you the truth, the carpentry work here was done by a master from my village. Our new house, the shop in the county city, and the shop in the prefectural city were all renovated by him. We've worked together so many times that we're already very familiar with each other. He can immediately understand what I want. I thought that if you don't have a suitable candidate, I'll recommend him. That's good. Madame Dai immediately agreed. Nie Shuang also nodded at the side. She knew nothing about this. In any case, if she was asked to pay, she would pay. If she had to work, she would work. She just had to be obedient. Gu Yundong said, then it's settled. I'll talk to Uncle Feng later. Madame Dai liked Gu Yundong even more. Not only was she smart, but she was also caring and would promote the people from her village. It was only reassuring to work with such a person. However, Nie Shuang had already calculated her private savings in her heart. She was the young lady of a merchant family, so she had quite a lot of money every month. In addition to the red packets and New Year's money that her uncles and aunts gave her every year, she was actually a little rich woman. If it was really not enough, she would borrow money from her eldest brother. As she was thinking, a loud shout suddenly came from downstairs. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 685. Lu Wei causing trouble. The three of them were stunned for a moment. They looked at each other and hurriedly went downstairs. The voice came from the backyard. After the loud shout, there were waves of cheers. The three of them didn't understand. It wasn't until they stood at the entrance of the backyard that they realized that Shao Qingyuan and young Master Dai were fighting. Not only did the others not stop the fight, they even applauded as if they were watching a show. Gu Yundong frowned. She turned around and saw Lu Wei standing not far away. She hurried forward and asked, "What happened?" Lu Wei was holding a large cup in his hand. The cup contained the pearl milk tea that he had snatched from Lu Hongxiu. He was drinking it happily. Hearing Gu Yundong's question, he did not turn around. He just waved his hand and said, "It's all right, it's all right. It's just a spar." Hearing that it was a spar, Madame Dai, who came over later, heaved a sigh of relief. It would be too unreasonable to fight at someone else's shop on their opening day. Gu Yundong could tell that the two of them were not really enemies. She was just curious. Why are these two sparring all of a sudden? Speaking of this, Lu Wei became a little complacent. I heard that young Master Dai's martial arts are powerful, so I was quite unconvinced. I said that Brother Shao could fight a tiger with his bare hands and let the two of them compete. Hee, so they're sparring. Gu Yundong felt the veins on her forehead twitch violently. So, this bastard was the one who instigated the two of them to spar? The problem was that this troublemaker actually had the cheek to hold a cup of milk tea and watch the commotion from the side as if it had nothing to do with him. Gu Yundong was considering whether to steam him or braise him. Lu Wei watched with great interest and did not realize that the person beside him was Gu Yundong. However, he seemed to feel a resentful gaze coming from the other side, as if he had done something heinous. Lu Wei frowned slightly. He turned around and met Nie Shuang's dissatisfied expression. Her gaze fell on the cup in his hand and finally fixed on the milk tea. Lu Wei was stunned and asked, "What are you doing?" He hid the cup to his side. Nie Shuang pursed her lips and retracted her gaze. She looked at Gu Yundong, who was standing on the other side of Lu Wei, and asked, "Why is his cup especially big?" It seemed that one cup was as big as two of hers. Huh. Lu Wei finally remembered who the voice belonged to. What the F***ck? Without looking back, he ran away with the milk tea in his hand, as if a dog was chasing him. Gu Yundong was speechless. Why on earth had she become friends with such a person? Was it too late to regret it? Could they break off their friendship? Forget it, let's pretend we don't know each other in the future. Gu Yundong turned her head and focused her attention on the two people who were still sparring in the courtyard. The two of them were unarmed and were fighting hand to hand, but it still made people's hearts surge. Gu Yundong knew that Shao Qingyuan was good at fighting, but this was the first time she had seen him fight so well. A moment later, the two of them stopped and took a step back. Young Master Dai smiled and cupped his hands. Shao Qingyuan also smiled. Gu Yundong could tell that he was very happy. Shao Qingyuan turned around and saw her. He smiled at her. Only then did Gu Yundong step forward and hand him a handkerchief to wipe his sweat. Master Dai also walked to young Master Dai's side and rebuked, "You were too reckless. Why don't you take a look at what day it is today?" Young Master Dai smiled and walked in front of Shao Qingyuan. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 686, Giving Red Packets. Young Master Dai's name was Dai Wenhua. Although his aura was still unstable, he still looked like a graceful young master. He looked at Shao Qingyuan with admiration. "Young Master Lu just said that you didn't specially learn this martial art from anyone?" Shao Qingyuan nodded. Dai Wenhua's eyes lit up even more. "Then you're really talented. There's a martial arts master in our residence who's very powerful. He used to be a famous figure in the martial arts world. Are you interested in getting him to give you some pointers?" Shao Qingyuan thought for a moment and glanced at Gu Yundong before nodding. "Thank you." "What are you thanking me for?" "I was especially thrilled today." David was really happy. "I heard that you're good at hunting. Let's go hunting together next time. By the way, your sweeping kick just now was not bad. Where did you learn it?" "I practiced it when I fought wolves." Shao Qingyuan's words had always been concise, but he was so patient. He must have appreciated Dai Wenhua. Gu Yundong did not disturb them anymore. She shook her head and stood beside Madame Dai again. Seeing that it was getting late, Madame Dai decided to take her leave. The others stood up to leave. Gu Yundong had originally wanted to ask them to stay for lunch, but everyone was only here to congratulate them on her grand opening. Besides, they had actually eaten a lot this morning and were a little full now. Hence, they left resolutely. Gu Yundong gave each of them canned white sugar as a return gift. As for those who wanted to buy something else, Gu Yundong asked someone to pack them up. In the end, she even brought back 2 pots of pearl milk tea for Madame Dai and Nie Shuang. Only Dai Wenhua didn't leave. He was with Shao Qingyuan and the two of them chatted for a long time. Gu Yundong could occasionally hear them fighting. She couldn't tell that Dai Wenhua was actually a martial arts fanatic. On the first day of Gus's opening, business was booming. After closing at night, when everyone took the account books to settle the accounts, they realized that they had earned a total of 1,800 taels. Compared to when she was in Fengkai County, her profits had doubled. Gu Yundong felt a little emotional. This prefectural city was a prefectural city after all. There were just too many rich people. However, this was only the first day. It would definitely descend later. Moreover, because of the activity, many people did not want to let go of this opportunity. There were many people. After a busy day, they were clearly very tired, but everyone was very excited. Gu Yundong was elated. She gave everybody red packets. Even little Yinka got one. The little girl was a little surprised. "Big sister, I didn't do anything." Gu Yundong patted her head. "Who said that? Didn't you help big sister entertain your sister Shuang and Auntie Dai?" The young lady thought about it and agreed. She had introduced the pearl milk tea and was carried around by sister Shuang and Aunt Dai. Hence, she happily accepted the red packet and went to show off in front of Madame Yang. The Lu family of 4 also each had one. They did not expect that they would get a big red packet without even receiving their first month's salary. They were instantly excited. Su Changshan was the most excited. He had just taken a look and there were 2 taels of silver inside. He could cut a piece of meat when he went back later and buy cloth for his mother and sister so that they could have new clothes to wear. Su Changshan's heart was filled with gratitude. His grip on the red packet tightened slightly, and his eyes burned. Lu Wei was very unhappy because he didn't have a red packet. He clearly helped to entertain the guests, and he even helped to wipe the tables and chairs. He was especially diligent. Gu Yundong ignored him. After the shop closed, she went to look for Feng Danning. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 687. Quiet in the noise. Feng Danning was also in the backyard today. He heard many people say that the structure of the shop was refreshing. While he was happy, he was also a little disappointed. Because although these people liked the place a lot, they didn't have any suitable jobs for him. However, this was also good. Business did not come easily. As long as everyone thought of him when they needed him in the future, it was enough. Unexpectedly, Yundong came looking for him at night. Uncle Feng, you might not be able to leave for the time being. There's a shop to be renovated in a few days, so I'll have to trouble you. Feng Danning was so excited that his eyes lit up. Not only him, but the two carpenters who followed him also asked anxiously, Yundong, are you serious? Where is it? It's on Mingan Road. I'm not sure how big the shop is. I'll go take a look in 2 days. Feng Danning nodded repeatedly. All right. Then we'll wait. When the construction should start, just tell us. We can go over at any time. Yundong smiled. All right, Uncle Feng, you can take this opportunity to meet with your old friends. You won't have time when you're busy later. With that, Yundong went home with everyone else. After dinner, she then talked about her plans to open a shop with Madame Dai and Nie Shuang. Everyone at the dining table was stunned. Cooperate with the prefecture magistrate's wife and Miss Nie? Opening another shop. What's wrong? Yundong raised her eyebrows. Can't I? Sure. Shao Qingyuan supported her unconditionally, no matter what she said. Gu Dajiang nodded repeatedly. I don't know as much about business as you do, but won't you be too tired? It's okay. I can still handle it. The others didn't say anything after hearing this. Only Shao Qingyuan shook his hand slightly. His future wife was walking too quickly, so he had to work hard to keep up. In the next 2 days, Gus' business gradually stabilized. On the 3rd day, the shop on Mingan Road was tidied up. Madame Dai invited her and Nie Shuang to take a look. The shop was quite big, even bigger than Gus. It was also a 2-story building and had a spacious backyard. After being cleaned up, without the obstruction of the shelves, it looked exceptionally empty. Madame Dai brought the two of them around and stood in the hall again. She asked with a smile, how is it? Not bad, right? It's not just good. It's very pleasing. Nie Shuang was too satisfied. Yundong also nodded. The location is good. It's quiet in the midst of the commotion. It's very suitable for drinking tea, chatting, and reading books. The backyard is also big enough. We can also design a few isolated rooms. They can be divided into several areas. Madame Dai was a little proud when she heard that. Since this shop is fine, let's discuss how to renovate it. Yesterday, when she went back and told the prefecture magistrate about this, he still looked a little uncertain. Madame Dai couldn't wait to achieve results for him to see. Yundong took out a piece of paper and a charcoal pen from his sling bag. Yes, let's discuss it first. I'll draw all my opinions and see how the effect is. As they spoke, they moved to the courtyard. There were stone tables and stools there, just enough for them to rest. I'll go first. Nie Shuang was very excited and sat on the stone bench first. I like the long chair on Sister Yundong's 2nd floor. It's a little like a beautiful couch, but it's also a little different. It's very comfortable to sit on. As Yundong listened, she drew the structural design of the shop. She moved quickly, multitasking, but Nie Shuang stopped talking. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 688, Female Assistant Problem. Yundong was stunned and looked at her suspiciously. However, she realized that Nie Shuang was not the only one. Even Madame Dai could not help but look at the paper she was drawing on. Yundong, your drawing is too realistic. Nie Shuang's eyes widened. She picked up the painting and looked at it again and again. I feel that even if I haven't come to this shop personally, I can still imagine the exact appearance just by looking at your painting. Madame Dai was also amazed. Yundong, I realize that the more I know you, the more powerful you seem to be. How many other abilities of yours do we not know? Gu Yundong blinked and immediately laughed. Alright, now is not the time to talk about the painting. Let's discuss how to decorate first and how to arrange the tables and chairs. Nie Shuang wanted to praise her a few more times, but business was more important. She was going to open a shop now, so she had to grow up. Therefore, she started talking about the decorations in the shop again with a serious expression. The shop was big enough. There could be some decorations downstairs. There was a bar at the entrance to order for customers. There were 2 long tables in the middle that could accommodate 7 to 8 people. There was also a small round table. It didn't have to be big. It was enough to put in some food. She also set up some booths, which could be blocked by a screen. Or, the sofas could be placed back to back. There should be a few more windows to make the room look brighter. Due to the fact that most of the guests here were rich and idle ladies, they definitely had to bring maidservants with them when they went out. Therefore, they still needed a resting area in a corner. If they did not want maidservants to serve them during the gathering and tea time, the maidservants could wait here. The second floor was slightly smaller than the first floor, but it was much quieter and had a wider field of vision. Therefore, there were fewer tables and the distance between the customers was much wider, allowing more space. Moreover, there were books, chessboards, paintings, and everything on the second floor. They were all things that could temper one's emotions. There was also the backyard. There were a few rattan chairs in the courtyard, and some flowers had to be planted. Most importantly, Gu Yundong meant to flatten all the rooms in the backyard and rebuild them into small private rooms to give people privacy. The doors of the private rooms could be locked. The private rooms could also be decorated into various types, such as tatami rooms, women's boudoirs, and solemn studies. The more Lady Dai and Nie Shuang spoke, the more excited they became. It was as if some wild ideas that they had wanted to achieve in the past but could not, had been implemented in this shop. Gu Yundong listened and recorded. In the end, after editing and deleting their opinions, she drew 3 unique designs. The more Madame Dai and Nie Shuang looked at it, the more satisfied she was. Then, she continued to discuss what to buy in the shop. Pearl milk tea became the best thing that the 2 of them recommended. Of course, there were also all kinds of flower tea and fruit tea. There was even fruit wine with a low alcohol content. The food was pastries and snacks. Gu Yundong provided a few kinds of baked goods, as well as canned fruit shops and other things that she sold in her shop. If there was anyone who liked salty food, there was also dried rice crust, dried fish, potato chips, nuts, and so on. After picking and choosing, they left a few items and drafted the menu. Finally, the most important one was the female employee. Gu Yundong did not intend to get involved in this aspect. She believed that both Madame Dai and Nie Shuang did not lack manpower. As long as the chef in charge of cooking in the kitchen was reliable, it would be easy to find female workers. However, Madame Dai and Nie Shuang did not allow it and insisted that Gu Yundong provide a candidate. Gu Yundong was in a dilemma. She was short of people. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 689. She's engaged. Gu Yundong felt that she was always short of people. Every time she opened a new shop or bought a new house, she would have a headache. However, Madame Dai and Nie Shuang were very insistent. Since it was a 3-person shop, Gu Yundong's candidate was naturally needed. Moreover, Gu Yundong was the backbone of the 3 of them. If she arranged for people to work here, she would understand the situation in the shop more directly. If anything was missing or there might be a problem, she could understand and adjust it immediately. It could not be better. Gu Yundong was speechless. Didn't they say that they would do everything? This was different from what they had agreed on. She felt like she had boarded a pirate ship. Nye Shuang chuckled. Sister Yundong, this is what it means for the capable to do more work. Gu Yundong smiled insincerely. No, I'm incapable. Madame Dai was speechless. Although Gu Yundong had a headache, she still agreed to go back and consider the candidates carefully. Madame Dai had said that she had to hire at least one person. One person. On the way back, Gu Yundong leaned against the carriage wall and sighed. If it's just one, Lan Huar will do. I just don't know if she's willing to come. Lan Huar was Zhuangzi's younger sister. She was doing some chores at home, and she was very smart and good-looking. She was quite suitable. Previously, when Gu Yundong's workshop was recruiting, Lan Huar did not come to apply for the job twice. She had inadvertently asked once and Lan Huar said that there was a lot of work at home. If she went to the workshop to work, her parents would be too busy. After all, the Shi couple still had to help her manage the 30 acres of orchard. But now that the Shi couple had found someone to help them work in the village, it was much easier. Furthermore, Zhuangzi would be coming to the prefectural city soon, so the siblings would accompany each other. Yes, I'll ask Lan Huar later. Tong Shuitao looked like she wanted to say something but hesitated. After a while, she said softly, Miss, I'm afraid Lan Huar won't come. Oh. How did you know? Gu Yundong was a little surprised. Tong Shuitao said, a few days ago, my father delivered goods over. When we were chatting, he unintentionally mentioned that Lan Huar is getting engaged. She had interacted with Lan Huar a few times, and the two of them slowly became familiar with each other, so she asked about her. Huh? Gu Yundong was stunned. Engaged? With whom? It's Jiang Bao. Jiang Bao? Gu Yundong felt that this name was very familiar. Not long after, she suddenly remembered. It's him? The shop assistant from Brother Shao's pharmacy? Gu Yundong had a deep impression of him. When the man first met her father, he was so indignant that he almost chased the two of them out with a broom when Gu Dajiang deliberately made things difficult for Shao Qingyuan. Later on, when he found out her father's identity, his attitude changed 180 degrees. He flattered her father so much that even Gu Dajiang couldn't take it anymore and hurried out. She did not expect him to be engaged to Lan Huar. Tong Shuitao said, I heard that it was Zhuangzi who set them up. Zhuangzi and Jiang Bao have a good relationship. He seems to be a reliable person. His family is simple, and his parents are reasonable people. Hence, he entrusted his sister to Jiang Bao. Before Ashu came, the two families had just decided to marry them next year. Gu Yundong blinked. They were engaged just like that? Is Lan Huar satisfied with Jiang Bao? Tong Shuitao nodded. The two of them have met before. I heard that they're quite satisfied. Therefore, Lan Huar would most likely not come to the prefecture capital. Thus, Gu Yundong could only look for a new candidate. However, this time, another figure quickly popped up in her mind. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 690, Let Su Qing come thinking of her. Gu Yundong immediately asked Tong Shuitao to turn her horse around. Gu Yundong did not know many people, but there were a few who left a good impression on her. One of them was Su Changshan's sister, Su Qing. The first time they met, she was actually more satisfied with Su Qing's personality than she was with Su Changshan. It was just that the shop did not recruit female workers. Otherwise, it would be easier for Su Qing to attract customers with her straightforward personality. Moreover, Su Qing was not bad-looking either. She had a very likable appearance. Coincidentally, her way home was in the same direction as her way to the Su family. It was good to take this opportunity to ask Su Qing for her opinion. If the girl was unwilling, she could only find someone else. It was still early when Gu Yundong arrived at the Su residence. Su Changshan had yet to get off work and return home. The carriage stopped outside the alley as usual. She and Tong Shuitao walked in. It was unlike the last time she came. There were not many people at the entrance of the Su family's house. Even if the neighbors passed by his house, they seemed to have to avoid him. However, when she arrived at the Su family today, she could still see many people looking at the Su family's courtyard door. She did not know what they were looking at. When Gu Yundong came over, their gazes fell on her. Gu Yundong was already used to such gazes. She only asked Tong Shuitao to knock on the door. She stood outside the door and waited. With a glance, she saw Madame's son again. When Madame's son met her gaze, she immediately shrank her neck. She no longer had the arrogance and mockery Gu Yundong had seen the first time. She hurriedly entered her house and only quietly opened the door a crack to look out. The corners of Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Mother Su happened to hear the commotion and came to open the door. When she saw her, she was stunned for a moment and quickly moved aside to invite her in. "Why is Boss Gu here?" She closed the door as she invited her in. After taking a few steps, she felt uneasy and asked, "Did something happen to Changshan?" Gu Yundong shook her head with a smile. "No, he's fine. I came here today for something else." "Is Su Qing here?" "I'm looking for her." "Yes, yes, yes." Mother Su quickly nodded and shouted, Little Qing, come out quickly. Boss Gu is here. She's looking for you." Su Qing ran out of the kitchen in a hurry. She was surprised to see Gu Yundong. "Boss Gu is looking for me?" "Okay." Gu Yundong entered the central room and did not beat around the bush. She told Su Qing that she wanted to open a new shop. Moreover, this shop specialized in entertaining ladies, so she needed a female shop assistant. She asked her if Su Qing wanted to try. The salary was a little less than Su Changshan's. It was 2 taels of silver a month for now. Of course, this was only temporary. If the business in the shop was good, the salary would definitely increase. Su Qing was stunned. Her mother also stood rooted to the ground in shock, unable to recover for a long time. What did Boss Gu just say? Not only did Boss Gu hire her son as a shop assistant, but she also wanted to hire her daughter as a female shop assistant. The salary was not low. If little Qing went too, the siblings' salary would be 5 taels. Moreover, Boss Gu was very generous. 2 days ago, on the first day of business at Gus, she actually gave him a red packet of 2 taels of silver. Su Qing felt her throat go dry. After a while, she asked uncertainly, "Boss Gu, are you really looking for me to be a shop assistant?" "Are you looking for me, Su Qing?" Gu Yundong was amused by her. "I'm looking for you, of course. Is there a second Su Qing here?" "Why? Don't you want to go?" "Yes, I do. Since you want to go, I have a few more questions to tell you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 691, Exalted. Su Qing immediately swallowed her saliva. She felt that the next step was the main point. Gu Yundong's expression became more serious. "I won't hide it from you. This shop doesn't belong to me alone. I opened it with 2 other people. One of them is Madame Da's wife, and the other is the eldest daughter of the Nye family." Mother Su was speechless. Su Qing. Madame Dai? Eldest Miss Nye? They felt that there was something wrong with their ears. Although they had long heard from Su Changshan that Madame Dai and Miss Nye had visited to celebrate the opening of Gus, they had never thought that these 2 people would actually cooperate with Boss Gu to open a shop. How capable was this Boss Gu? "You didn't hear wrongly. It's indeed them," Gu Yundong said. "So, you're not the only one working in the shop. There are also people hired by Madame Dai and Miss Nye. And you're the only one I have." Su Qing's expression instantly turned solemn, as if she felt a huge responsibility. Gu Yundong smiled when she saw this. "There's no need to be so nervous. I'm telling you this to make you fully aware of the situation. Mr. Dai and Miss Nia are easy to get along with. They won't make things difficult for you, but I don't know the people under them. I don't know their attitudes either. You have to adjust your relationship with them. But I hope you understand that even if they're Madame Dai and Miss Nice people, you are not inferior to them. There's no need to curry favor and bow down to them, but you have to grasp a balance. If they bully you, you don't have to hold it in. You have to counterattack when it's time, understand? I don't want my people to be cowards. Su Qing thought about it and could roughly understand what Boss Gu meant. Therefore, after a while, she nodded and said, I understand. I represent you. If I'm too strong-willed, it'll make things difficult for you, but if I'm too cowardly, it'll make others look down on you. Miss, don't worry. I won't be bullied, but I won't be inflexible either. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. This girl was a perceptive person. Actually, in the beginning, she wanted to look for Lan Huar because she was smart. Perhaps she was still a little girl who lived in the countryside and did not have enough knowledge, but as long as she was nurtured well, she would have no problem at all. But now that she saw Su Qing like this, she felt that perhaps she was more suitable. Since you understand your situation, are you still willing to be this assistant? Su Qing nodded vigorously. I'm willing. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I won't let you down. Gu Yundong stood up. All right, since you're willing, you can come over tomorrow. Stay by my side for a few days. It'll teach you some communication skills. Gu Yundong felt that she had to let Su Qing understand her personality and her position so that she could get along better with Madame Dai and the rest. Su Qing was very happy and nodded repeatedly. Yes. Seeing that it was getting late, Gu Yundong gave her a few more instructions before turning to leave. Su Qing sent them all the way to the door and watched them disappear into the alley. Then, she turned around in a daze and planned to close the courtyard door. However, the neighbors who had been waiting outside immediately rushed forward and asked, Hey, Su Qing, who is that girl? What is she doing at your house? Before Su Qing could answer, Mother Su had already arrived. Looking at these neighbors who were smiling ingratiatingly, she felt a little proud. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 692, Madame Dai is speechless. That's the owner of the shop where Changshan works. She came to look for our little Qing and gave her a job. After Mother Su finished speaking, before they could react, she slammed the courtyard door shut. Everyone else was stunned. What? Not only did this boss find Su Changshan to be a shop assistant in such a big shop, but she also gave Su Qing a job. How did the Su family suddenly get so lucky? Wasn't this a little too good? Everyone felt a little emotional for a moment, but they were also more determined to build a good relationship with the Su family. Perhaps in the future, this boss would have more jobs. It would be good to get the Su family to help introduce them. However, they didn't know that Mother Su already had other plans. After closing the courtyard door to block the gazes of those who were watching the commotion, Mother Su pulled Su Qing, who was still in a daze, into the central room. She sat on a chair and said, Little Qing, there's something we need to discuss. What is it? Su Qing finally came back to her senses when she heard her mother's serious voice. Mother Su said, Shall we move? Move? Su Qing was surprised. Yes, I've said it before. When we have money in the future, we'll find a new place to live. Although we don't have much money now, we can rent a courtyard elsewhere. Mother Su had been thinking about this problem for a long time. Besides, your brother's shop is on Dahui Road. The shop you'll go to in the future is on Mingan Road. They're too far from home. Your brother is fine. I'm not worried about him, but I'm worried about you commuting so far every day. We can rent a house near Mingan Road. Although the rent there is a little expensive, we can rent this house out. In addition, you and your brother have a salary every month. It won't be a problem to rent a small courtyard. Su Qing thought about it and felt that it was feasible. However, this matter would have to wait until Su Changshan returned before they discussed it together. Su Changshan naturally had no objections. If his shop was too busy and he worked late, he could still stay in the backyard behind the shop. However, Su Qing was different. According to Boss Gu, although her shop had a place for the night watch to rest, it was not suitable to spend the night alone. Still, the next day, Su Qing had to follow Gu Yundong to work. Su Changshan also had to work, so only Mother Su went to look for a house. Su Qing only told her not to work too hard. There was no hurry. After all, the new shop would not open for a while. There was plenty of time. Then, she put on her new clothes and ran to the Gu family's waiter early in the morning to wait at the door. When Gu Yundong went out, she saw that she seemed to have been waiting for a long time. She was stunned. "Why didn't you knock and come in?" Su Qing smiled in embarrassment. "I just got here too." Gu Yundong did not say anything else and brought her and Tong Shui Tao to the shop on Mingan Road. There were already a few people standing outside the shop. They were Feng Daneng and the two carpenters. They had been standing here for a long time. They had circled around the shop previously and roughly knew how big it was, so their faces flashed with excitement. When they saw Gu Yundong, the three of them immediately went up to him. Not long after, Madame Dai and Nie Shuang's carriage stopped at the entrance of the shop. After they came down, Gu Yundong turned around and introduced them to Feng Daneng and the other two, as well as Su Qing. Looking at Su Qing, Madame Dai and Nie Shuang were speechless. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 693, Su Qing's conduct. Although they had said that she should at least arrange for one employee, they did not expect Gu Yundong to really only find one person. However, since things had come to this, the two of them could not say anything else. The group first entered the shop to discuss the renovations. Feng Daneng and the other two walked 2 rounds inside. After looking at the blueprint that Gu Yundong had given them and the range that needed to be renovated, their 6 eyes could not help but flash with a scorching light. However, he still explained in advance, the entire backyard has to be rebuilt, so it might take a long time. "That doesn't matter," Madame Dai said. "The most important thing is to do the job well. I'd rather spend more time to do it meticulously. The room has to be sturdy, and the materials can't be perfunctory." "Madam, don't worry. We will definitely do our best." Madame Dai believed in Gu Yundong's recommendation. Next, it was time to discuss the details. Gu Yundong and Feng Danning had worked together several times, so there were some things that he could understand without her having to explain in detail. He would even suggest some unreasonable points. Therefore, in just half a day, they had already decided on how to renovate this shop. During this period, Su Qing was the one who poured tea and handed over pens and paper. Gu Yundong did not tell her, but she was very self-aware. Not only did she do it in an orderly manner, but she was also exceptionally considerate. After observing her for a day, Gu Yundong was very satisfied. Nie Shuang had a carefree personality and did not pay much attention to it. After all, she was the eldest daughter of the Nie residents and had a maidservant serving her all the time. She was already used to having someone take care of everything for her. However, Madame Dai could see it clearly. Hence, on the way back, she sat in the same carriage as Nie Shuang and could not help but say, although Yundong only found Su Qing, that girl can surpass others by several times. No wonder she can do business so well. Just in terms of hiring people, she makes others feel ashamed. Nie Shuang was at a loss. Seeing this, Madame Dai couldn't help but poke her head. After a while, she told her about Su Qing's performance in the shop today. Nie Shuang was suddenly enlightened. "I see. In that case, the person I chose is really too different from Su Qing. I was thinking of bringing her over to show you tomorrow. Now that I hear you say that, I think I have to change people." Nie Shuang's thinking was quite good. If she had to hire someone, she would choose the servants' children. Their indenture was in her hands and they could be trusted. After returning yesterday, her mammy had recommended 2, and so did her maidservant and 2 sisters. Even those with good culinary skills in the kitchen were suitable to work in the kitchen of the shop. She felt that there was no problem. The servants in the residence were used to serving people. Wasn't going to the shop to entertain those madams and young ladies just working in another place? But now that she heard what Madame Dai said, Nie Shuang could not help but think more. Especially with Su Qing as a reference. For example, Su Qing was good-looking, Su Qing was diligent in her work, Su Qing spoke sweetly, Su Qing was not afraid of hardship or fatigue. Nie Shuang immediately had a headache. It was not easy to find someone. Just based on looks alone, she had already eliminated the 2 people recommended by the mammy yesterday from her mind. Madame Dai frowned slightly. Her head hurt even more badly because she did not only have to hire the waiters and kitchen staff. She was also the one who chose the shopkeeper. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 694, Departure. News. The shopkeeper was different from the shop assistant. She had to be knowledgeable and capable. When she saw those madams and young ladies, she had to be neither servile nor overbearing. In this huge prefectural city, madam and madam had conflicts. Young miss and young miss disliked each other a lot. If they happened to meet in the shop, as the shopkeeper, she had to at least have the ability to mediate. At the same time, she had to have management skills, literacy, and etiquette. Most importantly, unlike the male shopkeepers in ordinary shops, there were too few experienced female shopkeepers. At the very least, there was none in the shops under Madame Dai's own name. Sigh, my head hurts. Gu Yundong also knew that the 2 of them were having a headache. After all, she had deliberately brought Su Qing over today. She more or less understood what the criteria for workers were for Madame Dai and Nie Shuang. It was obvious that they would definitely choose someone close to them. Even Gu Yundong herself would subconsciously choose someone she had a good relationship with. However, although the people close to him were trustworthy, it still depended on whether they were suitable. Gu Yundong had taken a share of this shop. If she wanted to do it, she had to do it well. She believed that Su Qing's trip today would be very effective. Gu Yundong sent Su Qing to the entrance of her alley before bringing Tong Shuidao home. When she entered, Shao Qingyuan happened to be at home. At this moment, he was sitting in the central room and standing in front of Zhou, as if he was talking to him. When Gu Yundong approached, Zhou finished speaking. However, Shao Qingyuan frowned slightly. Gu Yundong was puzzled. What's wrong? What happened? When Shao Qingyuan saw her, his expression instantly improved. He only said, "There's something going on at the manor. I'm afraid I'll have to go over tomorrow and will only be back in a few days." Manor? Gu Yundong remembered that Shao Qingyuan had bought a manor not far from the Xuanhe prefecture. Although it was not very big, the title deed was given to her. It seemed that ever since Shao Qingyuan bought this manor, he had never gone there again. What happened? Is it very troublesome? Shao Qingyuan shook his head. It's not troublesome. It's just that there are some things that I need to confirm personally. I originally wanted to bring you along to take a look when you're done here. In any case, it's not far from the Xuanhe prefecture. There are plenty of opportunities. Shao Qingyuan nodded. I'll leave tomorrow morning. As he spoke, he glanced at Tong Shuitao and Zhou. Before Tong Shuitao could react, Zhou cleverly pulled her out. There was no one in the central room. Shao Qingyuan held Gu Yundong's hand and said in a low voice, "I'll be back in 2 days at most. You have a lot of things to do, but you have to take care of your health. Don't tire yourself out." Gu Yundong felt her hand being wrapped by his broad and warm hand, and her entire body became warm. She pursed her lips. "I know." After a pause, she looked up and said seriously, "If you encounter anything troublesome, you must tell me." Shao Qingyuan smiled. "Yes, I've always listened to you." Gu Yundong glared at him. The next morning, Shao Qingyuan indeed left the Xuanhe prefecture with Zhou. Gu Yundong woke up early and did not see him. She sighed and brought Su Qing to the shop. Today, Madame Dai would bring the chef for the kitchen. Gu Yundong had to teach them how to make pearl milk tea. The kitchen was filled with people who had signed a death contract with Madame Dai. They would not easily leak the formula. Gu Yundong taught them very carefully. She was really tired after a whole day. However, when she went to Gus' shop to patrol as usual at night, Tong Ping and Chen Jinbao, who came to deliver the goods for the second time, brought her a message. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 695, Inventory Emergency. The goods sold too quickly in the prefecture capital. There was still a lot of stock in the workshop, but now, more than half of them are gone. Tong Ping showed the inventory list to Gu Yundong. Ever since the shop opened in the prefectural city, the workshop has not rested, but the stock in the warehouse is still decreasing. In other words, they were short of manpower. Gu Yundong also knew that there were many rich people in the prefecture capital. Their purchasing power was too shocking. Although she had limited their purchases, it was useless. There were even people who protested. Gu Yundong had originally planned to go back and start expanding the workshop after the shop was opened. Unexpectedly, Mr. Dai and Nie Shuang suddenly wanted to open a milk tea shop on a whim. However, these two people did not know much about this aspect, so she had more responsibilities. She was occupied and delayed. However, she had already completed all the things she needed to do in the past 2 days. The renovation of the shop, the selection of the shop assistants, and other trivia could be done by Madame Dai. It was indeed time for her to go back to Yongfu village to take a look. Gu Yundong accepted the list and expressed that she knew what to do. She said to Tong Ping, "I'll go back as soon as possible. Tell Tong and to recruit a group of people first. I'll screen them when I get back." Last time, it was Tong and who went through the first round of the interview first. At that time, he was still very nervous. This time, he should be much more proficient. Gu Yundong intended for him to be fully in charge of the workshop in the future. Since she was not around this time, it was a good opportunity for him to gain experience. Tong Ping immediately agreed. They did not stay in the prefectural city that day. As they had an appointment with someone to purchase the fruits, they left the Xuanhe prefecture before the city gate closed. Since Gu Yundong was planning to go back, she had to settle many things first. Su Qing had been by her side for 2 days. Gu Yundong was no longer worried about her. She only asked her to go to the shop more often after she left. Occasionally, the girl could also go to Gus to see how her brother treated customers as a shop assistant. It was always beneficial for her to read and learn more. It was no longer a problem for Feng Danning with the blueprints. Other than the 2 carpenters who followed him, he also hired a few more people. They were people he had met in the prefectural city previously. They had a good relationship and were skilled. Gus had also stabilized. With the deterrence on the first day of business, basically no one dared to come and find trouble. On the other hand, the next day, she went to look for Madame Dai and Nie Shuang to say goodbye. The 2 of them were very reluctant. They had not even given their shop a name, and the helpers they had chosen had not been introduced to Gu Yundong. The cook's skills were not very good, and they felt that there were still many questions that they had yet to figure out. Now that Gu Yundong was leaving, they felt inexplicably flustered. Gu Yundong's face darkened. She thought to herself that returning to Yongfu village at this time was indeed the right decision. If she continued to stay here, she would probably have to decide everything in the shop. Didn't they say that they would pay money and do everything? Gu Yundong felt that it was necessary for her to nurture their ability to be independent. If this continued, they would become more and more dependent on her. Didn't they know that she was still a child? Hence, she said decisively, "If there's anything, you can discuss it. As for anything that needs 3 people to decide, you can write to me. Don't worry, I'll definitely come back when the shop opens." Madame Dai and Nie Shuang had no choice but to nod and let her go back. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. In the end, she bid farewell to her parents and sister. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 696, Clothes-Making Vacation. Gu Dajiang was fine. Yongfu village wasn't far from the Xuanhe prefecture, so it was easy for them meet. But Madame Yang and Gu Yunke did not quite understand. They remembered that the last time they parted ways with Big Sister, they did not see each other for several months. This time, when they heard that she was leaving, the two of them pouted and hugged her, unwilling to let go. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I'll come to the prefecture capital in half a month at most. It's not like we'll be apart for long. Be good. Gu Dajiang also said, there's no need for half a month. In a few days, it will be time for the clothes-making vacation. I'll bring you back. When the time comes, we'll bring Yunshu and Yuanji to the prefectural city to take a look. Clothes-making vacation? Not only were Madame Yang and Gu Yunke confused, but even Gu Yundong was confused. It was rare for Gu Dajiang to see her reveal such a confused expression. He couldn't help but rub her head and explain, in addition to the one-day leave every 10 days, the academy also has farming leave every May, as well as clothing leave. It's usually after mid-September. Farming leave and clothing leave are both a month. Gu Yundong was enlightened. It turned out that there was winter and summer vacation at this time. Gu Dajiang said, however, the holidays aren't long. Students whose homes are too far away usually won't go back. Our family is close, and the round trip isn't long. It's not a problem for us to return to the village. However, I originally thought that since I had just entered the school, I needed to study harder in the academy. I'll just take the clothes-making vacation for 10 days. In any case, Yunshu and Yuanji can come over during the holidays. Our family can still reunite. Now that I think about it, it's not enough. After all, not all of Yundong's matters were in the prefectural city. Gu Yundong understood. Gu Yundong would not give any more opinions on matters related to studies. Anyway, her father knew what he was doing and he could decide how much rest he wanted. She just turned around and said to Madame Yang and Gu Yunke, you heard him. It's just a few days later. When the time comes, not only will you be able to see me, but you will also be able to see Yunshu and Yuanji. Only then did Madame Yang and Yunke let go of her, but they had already begun to count the days seriously. After everything was settled, Gu Yundong took Tong Shuitao and drove the carriage towards the city gate. Tong Shuitao pulled the reins and asked, Miss, since we're going to meet in a few days, why don't we just bring Madam and second Miss back to Yongfu village? Gu Yundong leaned against the wall of the carriage and looked at the bustling crowd at the city gate. Many people were queuing up to leave the city with carrying poles and things. Upon hearing this, she smiled and said, didn't you see my father's gaze? It's as if I'm the evil person who broke up Mother and Kiki. I can't afford to offend him. It's better to let father take care of them himself. Perhaps because he had been separated from his family for so long last year, Gu Dajiang especially cherished the time he had with his family. Gu Yundong had long discovered this. Every day, when her father came back from school, he would first confirm that his wife and daughter were around before he heaved a sigh of relief. He might have thought that their reunion was a dream. If he was not careful, he would wake up from this dream and his family would disappear. This situation would probably continue for a while before her father slowly adapted. Tong Shuitao did not really understand this psychological problem. In any case, she would listen to Mississippi. The carriage left the city gate. Seeing that the road ahead was wider, Tong Shuitao was about to speed up. Unexpectedly, just as the reins were raised and before she could shake them, she heard Gu Yundong suddenly say, wait. Tong Shuitao was puzzled. What's wrong, miss? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 697, Evil Dogs. Stay away. Gu Yundong lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked outside. She asked, Do you know the location of the manor that brother Shao bought? I know. She had already asked her father about this. Gu Yundong paused and said, let's go to the manor to take a look. Tong Shuitao was puzzled, but her hands deftly turned the horse and drove in the direction of the manor. Gu Yundong recalled what Shao Qingyuan had said before he left. There seemed to be something going on in the manor. She was curious and decided to take a look. Tong Shuitao happened to know the location. In any case, she was not in a hurry to return to Yongfu village. She was actually very curious. Her father had been to the manor, but she had never been there. This was the betrothal gift that the future husband would give to his wife. As the young miss, she naturally had to announce her identity. Thinking of this, Tong Shuitao was slightly excited, and the speed of the carriage increased. Gu Yundong, who was admiring the scenery outside, the manor was indeed not far away. Gu Yundong saw the things planted in the fields from a distance. Shao Qingyuan had said that a portion of the land was originally used to grow fruits. Later on, after he bought it, it just so happened that after the farming season, the fields that planted food had already harvested. He instructed them not to plant food, but to plant fruit trees and medicinal herbs. Many tenants were unwilling, but Shao Qingyuan had always been decisive. If they didn't agree, he wouldn't rent it to these tenants. Originally, when the farmstead changed owners, the previous contract between the tenants and the original owners had already been broken. Even if Shao Qingyuan replaced all of them, no one would dare to say anything. Only then did the tenants not dare to say anything. Later on, when they heard Shao Qingyuan say that he would buy all the fruits and herbs they planted and that the price was not low, they were relieved and began to plant them. Gu Yundong looked at the fields and saw all kinds of fruit trees. Some fruit trees must have been transplanted from other places. The trunks were tall. Some fruit trees were originally planted here, and they were already filled with fruits. Some of them had just been planted, and only tree saplings that were half the height of a person appeared. However, it could be seen that they were all well taken care of. Most of these fruit trees were in the periphery, and the medicinal herbs were inside. It seemed that they were surrounded and protected by these fruit trees. There was a fence around the fruit trees, which was similar to the orchard in Yongfu village. The carriage got closer and closer. Just as they were about to see the shadow of the manor, a series of barks suddenly entered their ears. Tong Shuitao was shocked. She instinctively pulled the reins tightly, and the carriage suddenly stopped. In the blink of an eye, the barking of the dog was right in front of him. What made people's hearts skip a beat was the sound of barking continued. It was obvious that it was not one dog. Sure enough, in the next moment, 3 tall and fierce dogs rushed out from 3 directions and surrounded the carriage. Tong Shuitao, F***ck, this dog even knew how to outflank? The 3 dogs did not approach her either. They stood 2 meters away from the carriage and looked at them covetously, but their eyes were fierce and ready to attack. It was as if as long as Tong Shuitao made any movement, they would pounce forward in the next moment and tear her into pieces. Fortunately, Tong Shuitao was strong and good at martial arts. She had also entered the mountains and met wild boars before. She was not afraid of dogs. She even glared at them one by one and sneered. Evil dogs, stay away. Otherwise, I won't be polite. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 698, They are very cute. She had just finished speaking when Gu Yundong slapped the back of her head. What evil dogs. The 3 dogs are clearly guarding this herb orchard loyally. They're loyal. Don't scare them. I scare them? Miss, did you get the wrong person? Not only her, but a young man who had just run over from behind almost fell to the ground when he heard this. Gu Yundong heard the commotion and looked up to the side. He saw a 20-year-old youth walking over with sweat all over his face. The 3 dogs should be under his control. After he came over, they quietened down and stopped barking fiercely. The young man walked to the front of the carriage and looked up at them. He asked, "May I ask who you are?" What are you doing here? Gu Yundong was still thinking about how to introduce herself when she heard Tong Shuitao jump down from the carriage and say, "My miss is the new master of this manor." Naturally, she's here to inspect the manor. Gu Yundong was speechless. Wasn't this introduction a little shameless? The young man was speechless. Should he let the dogs bite them? He had heard of people who came to find trouble and pretend to be acquaintances, but he had never seen anyone directly come to pretend to be his master. The two women probably didn't know that the boss happened to come to the manor yesterday, right? Seeing that the young man was frowning and seemed to be about to release the dogs to bite someone, Gu Yundong explained more clearly, "Shao Qingyuan is at the farm, right? We're here to look for him." Only then did the expression on the young man's face relax. She knows the new boss. Then she shouldn't be here to do bad things. Who are you people? My name is Gu Yundong, and before she could finish speaking, the young man's eyes lit up. You're Madame Dong? You know me? The young man nodded repeatedly. No, I don't. Then why are you nodding? But the boss said that he has a fianca copyright with the surname Gu. Tong Shuitao secretly whispered into Gu Yundong's ear, "Miss, your future husband is afraid that you will run away. You haven't even come to the manor yet, but he introduced you to the people here." There was no need for her to say anything. Gu Yundong's heart was warm. She looked at the young man. Shao Qingyuan came to the manor yesterday, right? Can I go meet him now? Of course. The young man was even more certain of her identity when he saw that she knew about the boss visit yesterday. He called out to the three fierce dogs and told them to continue guarding. Then, he came over to hold the reins of the carriage and led Gu Yundong inside. As he walked, he introduced, Big Black and the others are actually very obedient and intelligent. With them guarding the orchard here, no one dares to come. Previously, a few people wanted to steal fruits, but they were surrounded by Big Black and the others and almost peed their pants. As he spoke, he felt that she was a little vulgar. How could he say that they peed her pants in front of Miss? The young man quickly laughed dryly and said, in short, Big Black and the others were just afraid that you're bad people, Mississippi. They didn't mean to scare you. Gu Yundong could tell that he was afraid that she would be frightened and cause trouble for the three dogs. She smiled. I can tell that they are indeed very cute. Gu Yundong gave him a small piece of silver. Take this and buy some meat bones for them. Treat it as a bonus. The young man was stunned for a moment before he smiled happily. It's good that you don't blame them. I can't accept this silver. The owner has given money to me. I'll take good care of Big Black. As they spoke, the carriage had already arrived at the entrance of the manor. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 699, Master is not here. Gu Yundong jumped down from the carriage and threw the small piece of silver to him. Take it. This is compensation for their hard work. As she spoke, she asked Tong Shuitao to knock on the door. The young man felt that the silver was a little hot in his hand. He wanted to refuse, but footsteps were already coming from the manor. The young man thought for a moment and did not refuse. He put away the silver. Soon, the door of the manor was opened and a woman in her 30s came out. She was stunned when she saw Gu Yundong standing outside. The young man reacted quickly and hurriedly introduced, Aunt Wan, this is Miss Gu, the boss fianca copyright E. Then, she said to Gu Yundong, Aunt Wan is the housekeeper in charge of the manor. When Madame Wan heard this, she was stunned on the spot. She looked at Gu Yundong sizing her up. She fell silent and the atmosphere instantly became a little stiff. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes slightly. Seeing this, the young man hurriedly called out to her, Aunt Wan. Madame Wan suddenly came back to her senses. She hurriedly squeezed out a smile and moved aside. So it's Miss Gu. My bad. I didn't react for a moment. Miss, please come in. Gu Yundong nodded and stepped through the door. The young man behind her said, Miss Gu, I'll get going. Gu Yundong did not ask him to stay. She nodded and the young man led the carriage to the shed. He tied the rope, fed the horse, and ran away quickly. Tong Shuitao leaned close to Gu Yundong's ear and whispered, "This person seems to be stupid. He doesn't even know how to perform well in front of this rare opportunity. He didn't even say his name." Gu Yundong glanced at her. "Little Tao, you actually have the cheek to say that others are stupid? If we want to know his name, we can ask someone else." Madame Wan led the way and did not hear their conversation. Hence, Tong Shuitao took a few steps forward and asked, "Aunt Wan, what was the name of that young man just now?" Aunt Wan hurriedly said, "That's Yuan Qing from the Yuan family. The Yuan family is a tenant in the manor. Yuan Qing has been naughty since he was young. He raised a few dogs that are especially fierce, so we don't dare to approach them. Master said that those dogs are perfect to protect the orchard and gave the Yuan family a lot of money to take good care of those dogs." Yuan Qing? Tong Shuitao got the information she wanted and returned to Gu Yundong's side. When the three of them entered the courtyard, Gu Yundong took a closer look at the manor. Although Shao Qingyuan said that the farmstead was small, it was still much bigger than her house in Yongfu village. The so-called small was only relative to those big farmsteads. They walked inside. When they were about to reach the central room, Madame Wan raised her voice and shouted, "Hubby, hubby, Miss Gu is here." Not long after she finished speaking, footsteps came from ahead. Gu Yundong looked up and saw a tall but thin man coming out of the room. The man walked over quickly. When he heard Madame Wan's introduction, his expression immediately became more respectful. "So it's Miss Gu. I didn't go out to welcome you in time. Please forgive me. This should be the head of the manor, Zongguang." Shao Qingyuan had said that when he bought this manor, the previous owner had requested him to buy it with the Shui family. Gu Yundong sized him up and asked, "I'm here to look for brother Shao." "Where is he?" Zongguang hurriedly replied, "Master just arrived at the manor yesterday and brought people out." "Out? Do you know where he went? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 700, Something's Wrong with Madame Wan. Zongguang said, "Master went to the Jiao village next door to look for someone yesterday." As he spoke, he invited Gu Yundong into the central room. Then, he turned his head and urged Madame Wan, "Why aren't you pouring tea?" After Madame Wan left, Gu Yundong asked, "Why did he go to the Jiao village? Did he encounter any trouble?" Zongguang was a little hesitant, as if he was wondering if he should say something. Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows. "If you can't say, then forget it." "No." In the end, Zongguang still replied, "Actually, a self-taught doctor passed by the manor 2 days ago to stay. When I was chatting with him, I heard him say that he had a lot of rare medicinal herbs on hand. Master had previously instructed people to keep an eye on Biyao. If there was any news, they would immediately report it to him. Therefore, I asked if there was such a medicine. To my surprise, the self-taught doctor really did have it. I immediately sent a letter to Master. Because a portion of the land on the farm had been rented to plant medicinal herbs, Zongguang had also gotten to know a few herbs. Biyao, in particular, had been requested by his master. He had also seen the Biyao that the self-taught doctor had taken out. It really looked like that, but he was not sure, so he quickly reported it to his master. Biyao? Gu Yundong was stunned. So Shao Qingyuan said that there was an urgent matter because he had received news about Biyao. Was he here to confirm if Biyao was real or fake? This person was really. Zongguang saw that she did not speak and he felt a little uneasy. Could it be that he should not have said these things? However, his master had said long ago that this manor would belong to Miss Gu in the future, including their Shui family. Seriously speaking, Miss Gu was his master, so he naturally could not hide it. Gu Yundong suppressed the complicated emotions in her heart and asked, "Is the self-taught doctor in the Jiao village now?" Yes, the doctor traveled everywhere to treat patients. He waited in the manor for 2 days and couldn't wait anymore, so he went to the Jiao village. After Master came, he quickly went to the Jiao village. As she spoke, Madame Wan had already brought in tea. Gu Yundong asked Zongguang, which direction is the Jiao village? Miss, are you going to look for master? Yeah. As Gu Yundong spoke, she saw from the corner of her eye that Madame Wan's hand, which was holding the tea, paused for a moment. Then, she acted as if nothing had happened. Zongguang did not see it. He only nodded and said, "All right, miss, rest for a while and have some tea. I'll feed the horses some grass. Well, set off in a while." Seeing Gu Yundong nod in agreement, Zongguang left the central room. Madame Wan smiled at Gu Yundong and left. As soon as the two of them left, Tong Shuitao whispered into Gu Yundong's ear, "Miss, there's something wrong with that Madame Wan. When she saw us, her eyes were flickering. It seems like she's hiding something from us." Gu Yundong looked at her in surprise. "Not bad. You can even tell that something is wrong with Madame Wan." Tong Shuitao was slightly smug. "After all, I've been by Miss' side for so long. I have to improve. All right, since you think there's something wrong with the Wan family, follow them and take a look." Tong Shuitao immediately became excited. "Yes, Mississippi. Be careful. Don't let anyone find out." Tong Shuitao clenched her fists. "Miss, don't worry. I've learned martial arts for so long. I have this ability to eavesdrop." It was as if eavesdropping was a glorious thing. Gu Yundong was very upset. She waved her hand and asked her to leave quickly. Tong Shuitao chuckled, but her footsteps were very light as she followed Madame Wan. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 701, Water in Your Brain. Madame Wan came out of the central room and quickly caught up with Zongguang. After turning a corner, she finally couldn't take it anymore. She pulled Zongguang and said with a complaining tone, "Why did you bring her to look for master?" Tong Shuitao happened to hear this, and her eyes flickered slightly, as if she was about to hear a big secret. Zongguang frowned and said in a low voice, "Miss is master's fiancée. If she wants to see master, we naturally have to bring her along. What's wrong with that?" But, Madame Wan stammered, as if she wanted to say something, but she looked troubled. A bad premonition flashed across Zongguang's mind. He looked at her abruptly. "Are you hiding something from me?" No. Zongguang had been married to her for many years. Seeing her like this, how could he believe her? His tone immediately became heavier. "Tell me, what are you hiding from me?" Madame Wan was a little afraid of him. Seeing his dark expression, she couldn't help but shrink her neck and say softly, Didn't Qiner like master?" Early this morning, she saw that master hadn't returned, so she went to the Jiao village. What if that girl goes there too? Wouldn't they bump into each other? Her voice was soft, and Tong Shuitao finally heard it clearly. She immediately widened her eyes and covered her mouth to prevent herself from exclaiming. Zongguang widened his eyes and looked at Madame Wan, who was shrinking her neck in guilt. His expression was especially ugly. You. Are you trying to anger me to death? I told you last time that master has a fiancée. Moreover, anyone with a discerning eye can tell that he values Miss Gu very much. I asked Qiner to put away her thoughts. In the end, not only did she not give up, but you also helped her hide it from me. Is there water in your brain? Madame Wan was a little afraid of him, but she was still a little unconvinced. You said it yourself. She's just a fiancée. Moreover, why are you so sure that master values that Miss Gu? Our Qiner is so beautiful. No one within a 5-kilometer radius is more beautiful than her. Moreover, Qiner doesn't have to be master's wife. Being a concubine is Qiner's blessing. Shut up. Zongguang could not stand it anymore. His fingers trembled as he pointed at her. As expected of a woman's opinion. Let me tell you, if you continue to allow Qiner to get close to master, we won't be able to live. It's not as serious as you say. Zongguang saw that she did not know what was good for her, and the veins on his forehead were about to explode. As expected, you've stayed in the manor for too long. You're so stupid that you can't even differentiate between master and servant. With that, he didn't look at Madame Wan again and just walked forward even faster. Madame Wan was stunned for a moment. She quickly took a few steps forward and asked, "Where are you going?" "Send Miss to the Biyao village and bring Qiner back. You search for a good family the next few days. I'll go to master and ask for his grace to marry Qiner off as soon as possible." Madame Wan was shocked. "Do you have to do this?" "It's for our family." Tong Shuitao no longer listened. She turned around and walked back into the central room. Gu Yundong was standing in the courtyard and looking at a jujube tree in front of her. The jujubes on the tree had already ripened. She pulled some slightly and plucked a large bunch. She casually wiped them with her clothes and took a few bites. Yes, they were quite sweet. Chapter 702, How Bold Tong Shuitao watched anxiously. She went to her side and said, "Io, miss, you are still eating dates. Something bad has happened." "What's the big deal?" Gu Yundong moved the dates in her hand to her. "Do you want to eat them? They're quite sweet." "Is that so?" Tong Shuitao took one and stuffed it into her mouth. Then, her eyes lit up. "It's really quite delicious. I'll pick some and bring them back." She paused for a moment. "Can I pick them? Brother Shao bought this farmstead. Everything here belongs to him. Do you think we can pluck them?" Tong Shuitao immediately became happy. However, just as she was about to reach out, she immediately retracted her hand. Miss, I was talking about serious matters. I almost forgot about it when you interrupted me." "You almost forgot about that?" "I don't think it's a serious matter." Gu Yundong stopped after eating a few. She stuffed the dates in her hand into Tong Shuitao's arms, clapped her hands, and entered the central room before saying, "All right, tell me." Tong Shuitao put away the dates and quickly went to Gu Yundong's ear. She muttered everything she had heard from the Shui couple. Gu Yundong's hand, which was holding the teacup, paused. She frowned slightly. That Qiner had taken a fancy to Shao Qingyuan, and now she was going to the Jiao village to get close to him? "Miss, this woman is too shameless. She clearly knows that her master is already engaged, but she still keeps trying to get close to him." And that, Gu Yundong stood up with a swish and walked out of the door without another word. Tong Shuitao was stunned. "Miss, where are you going?" "Jiao village." Tong Shuitao hurriedly followed. She ran so quickly that her dates almost flew away. Gu Yundong walked very quickly. Just as he reached the door, he bumped into Zongguang. Zongguang was stunned. "Miss, the carriage is already at the door. Are we going to the Jiao village now?" Gu Yundong nodded and walked out of the door expressionlessly. For a moment, Zongguang was very nervous. He could clearly feel that Gu Yundong's expression was much colder than before. He even saw Tong Shuitao, who was following behind, glare at him. Zongguang frowned, but he did not dare to delay any longer. After Gu Yundong and her companion got into the carriage, he sat on the shaft and headed straight for the Jiao village. Tong Shuitao sat opposite Gu Yundong and watched as Miss closed her eyes and did not speak. Her heart was beating like a drum. Miss seemed to be angry. Had she been too straightforward just now? She should have been more tactful and prepared Miss mentally. It was all Qiner's fault. That vixen was shameless. Tong Shuitao scolded Shui Qin in her heart. However, Gu Yundong, who was sitting opposite her, had mixed feelings. She wasn't angry. She was just a little unhappy. When she heard the news, she became a little frustrated. Perhaps Shao Qingyuan's reputation in Yongfu village was not good, so the women in Yongfu village and even the nearby villages did not dare to approach him. Most of them ran away when they saw him. So much so that Gu Yundong almost forgot that Shao Qingyuan was also a very handsome man. He was a person who made women blush and their hearts beat faster. After leaving Yongfu village, there would probably be many women who did not understand Shao Qingyuan's personality and wanted to pounce on him. Yundong had always been busy. In addition, Shao Qingyuan had always put her first, giving her a sense of security. She had never thought that a woman would try to steal him away. This Xue Qin was indeed bold. Chapter 703 came out of reputation. The carriage traveled quickly and soon arrived at the entrance of the Zhao family village. Zongguang asked the villagers where the self-taught doctor lived. Sure enough, someone pointed at the village chief's house and said, "Over there. Do you see that big house? He's been staying there for the past 2 days." As he spoke, the villager added, "You're also here to see that doctor? That's unfortunate. Dr. Lu happened to enter the mountain to pick herbs. He went yesterday. I don't know if he can come back today." Pick herbs. Yundong looked at the mountain not far away. This mountain was not as big as Yongfu village, but it was not small either. But it didn't matter. She wasn't here to look for a doctor. Hence, Zongguang changed the question. "Then do you know that a young master surnamed Shao came here yesterday?" "Oh, you mean young master Shao? I know him." The villager nodded. "He's also at the village chief's house. He should still be there." "Thank you." Zongguang thanked him and drove the carriage towards the big house pointed out by the villagers. However, the road in the Zhao village was not easy to ride on. The path was very narrow, and the carriage could not pass through. The three of them could only get out of the carriage and tie it to the door of a farmer's house. They asked someone to help keep an eye on it before walking towards the village chief's house. After taking a few steps, Zongguang suddenly stopped in his tracks and pointed in the direction of the village chief's door in surprise. "Miss, that's Dr. Lu." Yundong looked up and saw a middle-aged man carrying a medicine basket slowly walking towards the village chief's courtyard. It seemed that they had come at the right time. Dr. Lu had just returned. Moreover, Dr. Lu seemed to be quite popular in the Zhao village. As soon as he entered the courtyard, a few villagers followed him. She even shouted, "Dr. Lu, you're finally back. Have you collected all the medicine?" "Dr. Lu, my grandson's cough is getting worse. Did you find the herb you mentioned yesterday?" "Dr. Lu, I felt a little dizzy just now. Take my pulse. Am I sick?" "Dr. Lu." A few people entered the courtyard, and the village chief's house instantly became lively. Yundong frowned. Zongguang, who was beside her, said, "There's no physician in the Zhao village. This is the countryside. Even if someone has a minor illness, they don't take it seriously. Dr. Lu came to treat everyone. I heard that he doesn't charge medical fees and only takes some medicinal herbs as a token. So everyone who's sick or not has come to let him take a look." Yundong was a little surprised. There was no consultation fee. "Let's go and take a look." Yundong took the lead and walked towards the small courtyard. Zongguang and Tong Shuitao hurriedly followed. They were a step too late. There were already many people in the courtyard. A young man was talking to everyone. "I know everyone is anxious, but young Master Shao has been waiting here for the entire day. First come, first served, right? When young Master Shao and Dr. Lu are done talking, Dr. Lu will come out and treat everyone immediately." Calm down, calm down." A villager asked curiously, "Jiao Lao-san, is this young Master Shao also here to see a doctor? Isn't he a young master? He doesn't look like he lacks money. Why don't you go to the city to see those doctors? This means that our Dr. Liu's medical skills are good, so this young Master Shao came because of his reputation." Yes, he came because of the doctor's reputation. Unexpectedly, as soon as the two villagers finished speaking, a furious voice suddenly came from inside. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 704, This herb is fake, nonsense, this is simply nonsense. His voice was a little loud and stern. Accompanied by the sound of slamming the table, the villagers who were chatting in the courtyard fell silent for a moment. After a while, someone whispered, "This sounds like Dr. Liu's voice." "What's wrong? What happened?" Jiao Laosan was also stunned for a moment. He was the third son of the village chief and was afraid that something would happen inside. He quickly turned around and entered the house. The other villagers looked at each other. After a pause, they squeezed to the door. Gu Yundong also walked forward, but she did not move into the crowd. She looked around and walked to the window beside her. She looked in through the open window. There were a few people sitting in the central room. One of them was Dr. Lu, whom he had seen earlier. At this moment, his face was red and his eyes were wide open. The beard on his chin trembled, and he looked very angry. There was also a man in his 40s in the central room. He looked a little like Jiao Laosan. He should be the village chief of the Zhou village. Then, Shao Qingyuan sat on the chair and drank tea calmly. He was exceptionally calm in the face of Dr. Liu's anger. "The thing you took out is indeed not by Musi. This herb is fake." As he spoke, he glanced at a box on the table. The box should contain the so-called by Musi. Gu Yundong glanced at it and felt that it was quite similar to the portrait in the book Dr. Song had given her. Dr. Lu sneered and closed the box. "I don't know which family's young master you are, but you had nothing better to do that you came to make fun of me. This is indeed an authentic by Musi. A while ago, I even sold 2 stocks. The buyers are rich families and have doctors in their residences. If it's fake, the doctors would have been able to identify it. They would have come to find trouble with me long ago." As he spoke, he sized up Shao Qingyuan, and the sarcasm in his voice intensified. "You're not even a doctor, yet you're pretending to know everything. This will only make you look ignorant." The villagers outside also felt that it made sense. A villager who had let Dr. Lu treat him shouted, "That's right, that's right. You're not a doctor. Do you know how precious this herb is? Is this by Musi too expensive? If you can't afford it, you cannot belittle Dr. Lu here. He's definitely trying to lower the price. Dr. Lu, don't fall for it. At most, you won't sell it. There will always be people who know their stuff." When Dr. Lu heard this, he nodded and even turned around to cup his hands at everyone. "Thank you, everyone, for speaking up for me." Then, he turned to look at Shao Qingyuan. "I'm not selling by Musi anymore. You can leave." Zhou, who was standing behind Shao Qingyuan, sneered. "You're the shameless person who doesn't know anything and earn black-hearted money by tricking people. Our young master knows much more than you do." A villager immediately said, "Dr. Lu didn't earn black-hearted money. He didn't even charge consultation fees. Yeah, he didn't even take a dime." Shao Qingyuan looked up and glanced at the villager who was speaking at the door. He nodded. He did not charge the consultation fee. He just charged some medicinal herbs. Everyone frowned, not understanding what he meant. Zhou had been by Shao Qingyuan's side for so long, so he naturally understood at once and immediately laughed out loud. Someone felt goosebumps from his laughter and asked sternly, "What are you laughing at? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 705, Shao Qingyuan says more. Zhou sighed and said coldly, "I'm laughing at how you're being played by others. They don't charge consultation fees, but you have to pay for medicine fees. These medicinal herbs aren't cheap at all. Moreover, I heard that all the villagers Dr. Lu treated are sick without exception. This is really too coincidental. Everyone who looks for him has to spend money to buy medicine. Is there a difference between this and paying consultation fees?" The villagers were stunned when they heard that. Village Chief Jiao, who had been silent, suddenly looked at Dr. Lu. Yes, it was said to be a free consultation, but why was it so coincidental that everyone was more or less sick and in pain? Dr. Lu was a little flustered at that moment. He glared fiercely at Zhou and explained, "The villagers came to see a doctor naturally because they felt uncomfortable. It's normal for them to be sick and in pain. I accepted the money for the medicinal herbs, but the price was not high. It's much cheaper than the herbs in the medicine shop in the prefecture capital. If you don't believe me, feel free to go to the shop and ask for the price of the medicinal herbs. You will naturally know if I'm being kind or black-hearted. Everyone was a little hesitant by his self-righteous appearance. Both of them seemed to have a point. Shao Qingyuan couldn't be bothered to listen to his excuses anymore. Whether Dr. Liu was lying and scamming money here or the villagers didn't believe him, it had nothing to do with him. He had no obligation to prove his point to these fence-sitters. He had only come to buy Biyao. Since he had confirmed that it was not the case, he planned to leave. However, just as Shao Qingyuan stood up, the village chief of the Jiao village stood up and said, "Young Master Shao, please wait." He walked up to Shao Qingyuan and looked at him sincerely. "Can you make yourself clear?" Shao Qingyuan looked at him. This village chief was not a bad person. Seeing that he had received a lot of care from the village chief yesterday, he still said a few more words. "The Biyao I'm buying has silver roots and purple branches and leaves. It's about 6 inches long and has 5 leaves. It's an extremely rare herb. But Dr. Liu's Biyao has white roots with a few thin patterns. Although it also has 5 leaves, their colors are dim. Also, he claimed that he sold 2 stalks a couple of days ago, which is ridiculous. If Biyao were so easy to find, its price wouldn't have been so high and I wouldn't have to spend so much time searching for it." When everyone heard this, they could not help but look at the box containing the herbs. Dr. Liu's face turned pale as he hugged the box tighter. Shao Qingyuan continued, "If I'm not mistaken, the medicinal ingredient in Dr. Liu's box is called purple summer leaves. It's indeed a medicinal ingredient that's very similar to Biyao. This medicinal ingredient is also rare, but it's much more ordinary than Biyao. The price is also worlds apart. As for its medicinal properties, it's neither good nor bad, right? It can be eaten as a tonic, but it's useless for treating illnesses." Dr. Liu's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Shao Qingyuan sneered and glanced at the herb basket beside him. Also, the herbs he picked on the mountain today are all weeds with little medicinal effect. If you don't believe me, take the herbs in his herb basket to the doctor in town to take a look. When everyone heard this, they instantly stared at Dr. Liu's medicine basket with burning eyes. Jiao Laosan received his father's gaze and immediately took a step forward to get the medicine basket. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 706. The girl in front. Dr. Liu's expression changed drastically. He subconsciously reached out to hug the medicine basket. In this way, everyone understood. Their expressions changed drastically and they glared at him angrily. They were so angry that their bodies were trembling. "You shameless thing, you actually used this medicinal herb to deceive us. No wonder my grandson hasn't recovered after coughing for 2 days. You heartless thing, you want to kill us. This is treatment, you quack. If anyone's illness is seriously delayed by you, you'll be the murderer. Bring him to the officials, village chief. This kind of black-hearted thing must be sent to the officials. Yes, he must have tricked other villages too. I don't know how many people around here have been persecuted by him. Maybe the herbs he sells have already killed people." The more Dr. Liu listened, the paler his face became, and his hands and feet slowly turned cold. He still wanted to defend himself, but facing the indignant villagers, he could not find any excuse. Soon, a villager went forward to pull him and snatched the medicine basket from his arms. "It's evidence that he's harming people. Come, let's go see the officials." Dr. Liu staggered a few steps from being pulled by a few people. Even his wrist was bleeding from a woman's nails. Hearing that the villagers insisted on sending him to the officials, the panic in Dr. Liu's heart grew. Gradually, hatred spread, and he looked at Shao Qingyuan with resentment. Shao Qingyuan raised his eyebrows. Dr. Liu suddenly broke free from the villager's grip. Then, she quickly rushed towards Shao Qingyuan. "It's all your fault. It's all your fault. You had to interfere. Shao Qingyuan didn't care about him at all. Seeing him rush forward, a figure suddenly blocked in front of him and pushed Dr. Lu away. You're the one who plotted against us for money, yet you're blaming others for exposing you. You're simply shameless. A crisp voice sounded in the room, attracting everyone's attention, including Gu Yundong, who was standing behind the window sill outside. Gu Yundong smiled when she saw this woman bravely standing in front of Shao Qingyuan as if she wanted to protect him, but she was trembling and trying her best to suppress her fear. She turned around and glanced at Zongguang. Who is she? Zongguang felt that Miss Gu seemed to have seen through something and understood everything. His forehead could not help but break out in cold sweat. He laughed dryly and hurriedly said, She's my daughter. Her name is Qin. After that, she explained, this morning, I was a little worried that Master hadn't returned to the manor, so I asked Qiner to come over and see what had happened. As soon as he finished speaking, Zongguang wanted to slap himself. It would have been better if he hadn't explained, but once he did, he felt like he was hiding something. Gu Yundong replied with a meaningful, oh, and continued to look into the house. Shao Qingyuan didn't seem to be satisfied with this woman who suddenly stood in front of him. He frowned slightly and looked at Zhou. The latter touched his nose and said softly, young master, this Miss Xue was standing in front of me. He also wanted to stand in front of young master. Wasn't it because his geographical location didn't allow it? He let Qin beat him to it. Qin's back was facing them, so she naturally didn't see their exchange of glances. She only glared at Dr. Lu, who had been pushed to the ground by her, and said, our young master is trying to seek justice from the bottom of his heart. He didn't let you harm so many people, but you still bite back and say that my young master is nosy? Are we going to let a poisonous snake like you go around harming people? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 707, Why are you here? Yes, this girl is right. The villagers were united against a common enemy and were still a little afraid. Young Master Shao had exposed his scheme and saved the entire Jiao village. In the end, there were so many of them and Dr. Lu had almost hurt young Master Shao. It was unbearable. Therefore, village chief Jiao quickly got a few tall men to tie up Dr. Lu and send him to the government. Dr. Lu was still struggling. At this moment, he regretted not taking out the medicinal hoe he had used to dig for herbs in the medicine basket. Otherwise, he would have been able to take this opportunity to escape. Now, he had no power to retaliate. Other than cursing loudly with hatred in his eyes, all his struggles were useless. Soon, he was pulled out. Village chief Jiao followed him out. Jiao Laosan originally wanted to stay and entertain Shao Qingyuan. However, when he looked up, he saw the girl standing beside Shao Qingyuan with a shy expression. He immediately understood. Wasn't there a saying that a gentleman should not be a third wheel? He wouldn't stand in their way and stop them from talking. Therefore, Jiao Laosan gave Qin an encouraging look. Although the latter did not see it, he still went out with a smile. Before leaving, he even glanced at Zhou, but Zhou did not react at all. Jiao Laosan sighed. This man was really tactless. If he ruined his master's plans, he would probably not be able to climb up in the future. He shook his head and went out. Seeing that there were no outsiders in the room, Qin secretly heaved a sigh of relief. She turned around shyly and asked with concern, young master, are you all right? Dr. Lu didn't hit you just now, right? I was so frightened just now. I thought he had a knife in his hand. Fortunately, there was nothing. Otherwise, before she could finish speaking, Shao Qingyuan suddenly turned his head and looked in the direction of the windowsill. There were only villagers outside just now, so Shao Qingyuan didn't pay special attention. Now that the villagers in the courtyard had left, Gu Yundong and the others, who were standing by the window, appeared especially out of place. Shao Qingyuan turned around and met a familiar pair of smiling eyes. His pupils constricted, and the originally cold expression on his face instantly softened. His joy was obvious, and the indulgence in his eyes seemed to overflow. "What are you doing here?" His voice was gentle, and Xue Qin, who had her head lowered, did not notice his gaze. However, she was very happy in her heart and thought that he was talking to her. She quickly replied, "I saw that you had not returned all night and was a little worried, so I came to see if something had happened." In fact, Xue Qin had come over early in the morning and had long wanted to express her concern. However, she never had the chance to talk to him. After she came to the Jiao village and found him, she didn't have the chance to talk to him. Not only was Zhou by his side, but the village chief of the Jiao village was also in front of her. Who knew that Dr. Lu suddenly wanted to attack young master just now and she went to block it? Instead, young master noticed him and even was so gentle. At this moment, Xue Qin was actually a little grateful to the black-hearted Dr. Lu for creating such a good opportunity for her and letting young master see her intentions. Shao Qingyuan said, "Come here." Xue Qin lowered her head, feeling even more embarrassed. Her heart was beating exceptionally fast. She hummed softly and walked towards Shao Qingyuan. However, she had just taken a step when she was suddenly pushed. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 708, Gu Yundong's Reward. Xue Qin staggered back 2 steps. When she looked up, she realized that the person who pushed her was Zhou. She asked in shock, "What are you doing?" Zhou shouted, "He's not talking to you. Go away." This time, he reacted fast enough. Young master shouldn't glare at him. Xue Qin was stunned for a moment before looking up at Shao Qingyuan aggrievedly. Then, she realized that Shao Qingyuan had been turning his head to look out of the window. Outside the window stood an exquisite-looking girl with curved eyes, as well as someone with ashen face and clenched fists, wishing he could beat her to death, her father. What was going on? Who was this girl? Why was her father here? Gu Yundong looked up and measured the height of the window sill. She realized that the window of the house was quite big. She immediately stopped walking towards the door and jumped in with her right hand on the window sill. Before she could land, Shao Qingyuan had already run over and caught her. He frowned and said unhappily, "Why didn't you go through the door? The ground is uneven. Be careful and don't fall over." Gu Yundong smiled. "Don't I have you?" The two of them acted as if no one was around, provoking Xue Qin, who was standing not far away. She widened her eyes and fixed her gaze on Gu Yundong. She wanted to ask who this woman was and why young master was so good to her and so gentle. However, she could not speak because her father, Xue Zongguang, had already entered from the door and dragged her out, not giving her a chance. Xue Qin was led out of the door. She stared at Gu Yundong in the room indignantly. Zhou was especially perceptive this time. He walked out of the room quickly and even very considerately closed the door of the central room for the two of them. Even the last bit of light was blocked for Xue Qin, and she looked a little unwilling. But Gu Yundong, who was in the house, did not even look at her from the beginning to the end. She did not take her seriously at all. She only had eyes for Shao Qingyuan now. After everyone left, Shao Qingyuan couldn't help but squeeze her hand and ask again, "Why are you here?" "I'm here to see what kind of trouble you're in." The gentleness in Shao Qingyuan's eyes intensified. "You know now?" "Yes, I do." Gu Yundong slowly took a deep breath. "It turns out that you've been looking for Bai Muzi all along, and you've memorized Bai Muzi's characteristics and appearance. You're even afraid of mixing it up with other herbs and finding the wrong one, so you remember the herbs that look similar clearly. Did you put in a lot of effort?" Shao Qingyuan looked at her deeply. Indeed, she understood. She had always been so considerate. Shao Qingyuan felt that he could not leave her. He nodded slightly, his voice slightly hoarse. "Yes, so are there any rewards?" Gu Yundong tilted her head, thought for a moment, and suddenly grabbed her waist. Shao Qingyuan thought that she would hug him, but in the next moment, the woman in front of him suddenly tiptoed and kissed his face. Shao Qingyuan, he widened his eyes and looked at the woman who had already retreated. She was still smiling, as if everything just now was just his imagination. You don't like it? Yundong could not help but ask when she saw that he did not react for a long time. Shao Qingyuan suddenly came back to his senses. I like it very much. Let's do it again. Damn you. You're pushing your luck. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 709, Yundong's Guilt. Yundong patted her hand and said, since you came to look for Biyao, why didn't you tell me the day before yesterday? It's not easy to get Biyao. I'm worried that it's fake news. We have to confirm it first. Otherwise, won't all of you be happy for nothing? Reality proved that it was indeed fake. Even though he didn't have much hope from the beginning, Shao Qingyuan was still disappointed. Yundong asked him, other than this time, how many other times have you heard news about Biyao? 2 times, I guess. Unfortunately, neither of them are real. Yundong fell silent for a moment. She did not speak. Shao Qingyuan could not help but pat her back. What's wrong? There's no need to be disheartened. We'll find it eventually. It's not like there's only one Biyao in the world. We'll find it if we search longer. Yundong sighed and smiled bitterly. Biyao is clearly what my mother needs. I'm not as focused on that as you. She felt ashamed. It seemed that ever since she brought Madame Yang to see Song Dejiang and confirmed that her life was not in danger, Yundong had been half relieved. Although she was also looking for Biyao, she was no longer in such a hurry. As for Shao Qingyuan, in order to find Biyao, he went deep into the mountains, opened a pharmacy, memorized the medicinal ingredients, and understood the characteristics of similar herbs. As long as there was any news, he would personally go over to confirm it. She actually did not know how much he had done and how much effort he had put in. Compared to him, she did very little. Yundong lowered her head slightly. At that moment, self-reproach and guilt surged. Shao Qingyuan was stunned for a moment before saying, aren't you earning money? Shao Qingyuan pinched her tender cheek and felt the soft touch under his hand. His voice was hoarse as he said in a low voice, I'm looking for the herbs. Isn't it just right for you to earn money and buy them? His voice was low and deep, as if he could comfort people. Biyao is rare and expensive. If you don't work hard to earn more money, what if you can't buy it when you find it later? That seemed to make sense. Your ability is limited alone. You can't take care of everything. You've already done it very well. Besides, I can't let you do everything. Then why do you still need me, your fiancé? You have to leave something for me to do. Yundong laughed. When did this person become so good at comforting people? She was really too used to doing everything herself, even though she had a family and a fiancé now. However, she was only one person after all. There were some things that she could hand over to someone close and trusted, right? Yundong suddenly understood. She hugged Shao Qingyuan. All right, let's work hard together. I'll be in charge of working hard to earn money. You'll be in charge of finding medicinal herbs and treating my mother. Okay. The woman in his arms was soft. Holding her, Shao Qingyuan felt unprecedented satisfaction. He couldn't bear to let go. Unfortunately, there was a commotion outside the door. Yundong let go of him and rubbed his face twice with a smile until it was red. It's getting late. Let's go back first. Shao Qingyuan heaved a sigh of relief and pulled her open the door. The few people standing outside were stunned for a moment and quickly took a few steps forward. Shao Qingyuan and Xue Qin didn't look at the expectant Xue Qin and walked out of village chief Jiao's house first. The Jiao village was very lively. Shao Qingyuan didn't care and the group walked towards the entrance of the village. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 710. Forgot your identity. Shao Qingyuan helped Gu Yundong into her carriage while Tong Shuidao rode. As for his original carriage, he handed it to Zhou. As soon as Zhou sat in the shaft of the carriage, he said to Qin, who also wanted to come up, walk back yourself. After saying that, he shook the reins and the horse chased after the carriage in front. Qin's eyes widened in disbelief as she looked at the carriage that was getting further and further away. She was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She stomped her feet fiercely and said to Zongguang, who had also been left behind, "Father, look at him. What kind of person is this?" As soon as young master left, he immediately changed his expression and didn't take us seriously. That carriage isn't his. However, Zongguang suddenly shook off her hand and said, "You're the one who thinks too highly of yourself. Who do you think you are? You're just a servant. What right do you have to sit in master's carriage? Little brother Zhou has been by master's side for so long, but you've only seen master twice. You didn't even leave a good impression on master. Zhou is already being polite to you." Qin's eyes widened in disbelief as she looked at her father who had scolded her. "Father, what are you talking about? Yes, we're servants. Others look down on us, but we can't look down on ourselves. What's wrong with servants? Are servants not humans? Besides, who said that I didn't leave a good impression on master? I helped master block the danger just now. Master must be touched." It was as if Zongguang was meeting his daughter for the first time. As expected, they had stayed in the manor for so long that they had forgotten their identity and really thought of themselves as the master of the manor. He raised his hand and slapped her hard across the face. Qin only felt a burning pain on her face, and her expression was filled with shock. "Father, you hit me?" "Yes, I'm waking you up. You're trying to get close to master even though you know he has a fiancée. That's shameless." Zongguang sneered. "Master is touched? I didn't see that at all. Do you think that it was something to protect your master? Let me tell you, it was completely unnecessary. If you hadn't been in his front, he would have kicked Dr. Lu away. I saw everything outside of the window. Master was not touched, only annoyed." "No way." Zongguang felt extremely tired and blamed himself for not teaching his daughter well. Just as he was about to say something, he heard a soft click. Zongguang was stunned and looked up. He saw Jiao Laosen walking out from the corner with an awkward smile on his face. It seemed like he had been standing there for a while and had probably heard a lot of things. No matter how much Zongguang wanted to educate his daughter, he could not do it in front of outsiders. He smiled at Jiao Laosen and dragged Qin away. Jiao Laosen rubbed his nose and watched as the father and daughter walked further and further away. Then, he punched the wall in frustration. It turned out that he was the one who was really insensitive. He had almost done something bad out of good intentions. Zongguang brought Qin to the manor in a hurry. The Jiao village was not far from the manor, but it still took them a lot of time on their two legs. When the two of them arrived outside the manor, Zongguang saw Madame Wan standing at the entrance with a worried and resentful expression. Zongguang had a bad feeling. He quickly took a few steps forward and asked, "Why are you standing here? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 711. Something big happened when Madame Wan saw him coming over. She quickly took 2 steps forward and said, "Why are you only back now? Let me tell you, something big has happened." "What is it?" Zongguang's heart skipped a beat. Madame Wan did not notice his expression. She only pointed in the direction of the orchard and said, 2 people actually came to steal herbs in broad daylight and were caught. However, they killed Big Black. Master and Miss are interrogating them now." "They killed Big Black?" Zongguang's face instantly darkened. Although Big Black was not raised by him, he had watched it grow up. That dog looked fierce but was very protective of its master. He did not expect it to be killed by two thieves. He could not care less about his legs that were a little weak from rushing. He wiped his sweat and turned to walk towards the orchard. Unexpectedly, he had only taken a step when he heard Madame Wan's noisy voice behind him. "Qiner, what's wrong with your face? Who beat you up? Mother will avenge you." Just now, Madame Wan only saw her husband and daughter return. With something on her mind, she did not pay attention to Xue Qin. It was only then that he realized that Xue Qin had been covering her face. Once she let go, the clear five-finger mark on her face was simply terrifying. Madame Wan was furious on the spot. Xue Qin looked at Xue Zongguang with some complaints, which reminded Xue Zongguang of what the mother and daughter had done. He immediately said impolitely, "I did." Madame Wan was shocked, but when she saw Xue Zongguang's fierce expression, she was a little afraid. Xue Zongguang snorted coldly. "Bring her back and boil an egg for her face. Then lock her in the room and don't let her out. At least, keep her in the room until master leaves." "Father." Xue Zongguang ignored her and warned Madame Wan, "You'd better listen to me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude and chasing you and your daughter out." Madame Wan wanted to retort, but she didn't dare to. She hurriedly nodded. I understand." As she spoke, she went over to pull Xue Qin. Ignoring her dissatisfaction, she forcefully brought her into the manor. Only then did Xue Zongguang turn around and run in the direction of the orchard. Before she could walk in, she heard a commotion and vaguely heard Yuan Cheng's suppressed cries. Xue Zongguang's heart ached as he quickened his pace. Indeed, there were many people standing in the middle of the herb orchard surrounded by fruit trees. Other than Shao Qingyuan, Yundong, and the others, there were also many tenants who looked murderous. There were two people lying on the ground in the middle. Their bodies were firmly tied with ropes. It seemed that they were the two thieves. Yuan Cheng's face was covered in tears, and he looked extremely sad. There was a mess of blood at his feet, and it looked a little shocking. Xue Zongguang's gaze finally landed on Big Black, who was lying on the ground. He was slightly stunned. Big Black was not dead. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief and blamed his wife for exaggerating. However, although Big Black was not dead, it was indeed injured. The blood on the ground was from it. Now that it was on the ground, it looked like it was on the verge of death. It looked like it was in pain and he did not know if it could be saved. It must have been smeared with medicine, but its limbs still twitched from time to time. Yundong squatted on the ground and gently stroked its head, as if to comfort it. Xue Zongguang walked forward and asked a tenant beside him, what exactly happened? The tenant's face was also filled with anger. He pointed at the two bandits and said, "These two animals deserve to be struck by lightning. If you find any errors, ads pop-up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 7:12. Almost dead. The tenant said, "These two animals took a fancy to the medicinal herbs in our herb orchard and wanted to secretly come and pick them. However, the herb orchard was guarded by Big Black and the other two big dogs. They knew that they couldn't succeed easily, so they used despicable methods. The two thieves clearly had a plan. One deliberately lured Yuan Cheng and the dogs away from the herb garden. Then, the other one came in to steal the herbs. However, who knew that even though Yuan Cheng and the two dogs had left, Big Black was still guarding and unwilling to leave. The little thief was determined, but with Big Black around, he did not dare to approach. Big Black was too ferocious. When a dog barked, it could make people pee their pants. However, although Big Black was fierce, it was not a dog that would easily hurt people. It was mainly used to intimidate thieves and scare people. Until now, it had never bitten anyone. Therefore, it only cried out to warn the little thief to leave quickly and use its cries to attract others. However, the closest place to the herb orchard was the manor. Xue Zongguang, who was in the manor, took Yundong to the Jiao village and was not at home. Moreover, Madame Wan was a person who was especially insensitive to the barking of dogs. She only felt that Big Black was going crazy again and did not want to go over to take a look. The other tenants heard the faint barks and rushed over, but it took time. Seeing that Big Black did not pounce on him and bite him, the little thief could roughly tell that something was wrong. He immediately ignored it and went to pluck the herbs. After plucking 2 herbs, he completely angered Big Black. It suddenly jumped up and pushed the little thief to the ground. However, even though it had pounced on him, it did not bite him. It only pressed down on his shoulder to stop him. However, Big Black did not know that the little thief below had come prepared. He immediately drew his knife and stabbed at Big Black. Big Black had been cut 3 times. 1 in the abdomen, 1 in the face, and 1 in the leg. The injury on its leg was the most serious. The cut on its face ran from its forehead to its mouth. The scratch was a little deep. If it was slightly off, it would blind its eyes. Yundong looked at the wound and the anger in her heart rose bit by bit. She could not stop it. Big Black was very sensitive. It seemed to have sensed her emotions. It raised its head slightly and whimpered. As it moved, blood gushed out of its wound. Yundong quickly restrained her expression and gently touched it. Don't move. It's good medicine. She knew nothing about how to treat its injuries and could only touch it gently. The medicine on the wound was given by Shao Qingyuan, and it was very effective. Although Shao Qingyuan had some medical knowledge, Big Black was not a human after all. Other than treating its wound and spreading medicinal powder, he did not know where to start. Yuansheng had taken care of Big Black since he was young. He had some experience, but he could also feel that Big Black was feeling very uncomfortable. He wiped his tears and cried especially hard. Fortunately, at this moment, a tenant ran over. I brought the vet from the neighboring village over. Quick, let him take a look at Big Black. Yuansheng quickly moved aside. Yundong also stood up and retreated. The vet immediately squatted down to check on Big Black's injuries. Yundong clearly felt Big Black twitch. She turned her head slightly to avoid looking at it, but her gaze fell on the 2 thieves. The next moment, the anger on her face surfaced again. Not only did these 2 thieves want to kill Big Black, but they also didn't intend to let the other 2 dogs go. The food used to lure Big Yellow and the others away was smeared with poison, and they would die on the spot if they took a bite. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 713, How Savage Yundong had never had a pet before. She was even afraid of such large dogs when she was young in her previous life. However, when she saw that Big Black, who had done its best to protect its master and the orchard and had no intention of hurting anyone, was almost killed by this beast, she was furious. Especially since the 2 of them did not have any regrets, her anger was maxed out. After squeezing through the crowd, Yundong walked to the 2 thieves and said to Tong Shuitao and Zhou, drag these 2 things over there. Yes. Tong Shuitao and her companion were already eager to give it a try. They immediately dragged the 2 of them, whose mouths were gagged and their hands and feet tied, into the tall orchard. The 2 of them looked up and whimpered at Yundong, as if asking her to let go of them. The others found it strange, so a few of them followed over to take a look. Zongguang also went over. Just as he arrived, he saw Zhou remove the cloth balls that blocked the 2 thieves' mouths. The 2 of them immediately cursed, "Let us go. What do you want? We didn't steal anything. Can you kill us?" Tong Shuitao went over and slapped each of them fiercely. "You didn't steal anything, but you almost killed our dogs. So be it. They're not human. What are you doing? Do you still want to avenge them?" The 2 of them were a little arrogant. "Or are you sending us to the officials? Come on, let's see how the county magistrate will judge this case." In any case, they did not steal anything. At most, they would be locked up for 2 days. There was no law here that said that a person who killed a dog had to be sentenced. Tong Shuitao was furious. How could there be such a shameless person? She still wanted to hit him, but Gu Yundong stopped her just as she raised her hand. Tong Shueitao turned her head. Mississippi. Step back. Gu Yundong waved her hand. Tong Shueitao glared at the two of them and took a few steps back. The two thieves immediately sneered and stuck their tongues into their cheeks that had been slapped just now. They thought to themselves that they would get back at her after they were untied. They would teach this girl a lesson. Zongguang and the other tenants were angry, but what could they do? They couldn't really kill the thieves, and it didn't seem like they would suffer anything if they were sent to the officials. At most, they would be beaten and let go. Zongguang thought for a moment and took a few steps forward. He was about to say that he would deal with these two people. Unexpectedly, Gu Yundong suddenly raised her leg and kicked the two of them in the chin. Zongguang, the tenants were speechless. The two of them screamed and rolled back in unison. They fell to the ground for a long time and did not react. After a while, they slowly opened their mouths and spat out a mouthful of blood and teeth. Gu Yundong stomped her feet and took another step forward. She didn't say anything. She rubbed her right wrist slightly. After the two of them sat up, she punched one of them heavily in the stomach. She swung her hand back fiercely at the other person's head, grabbed his hair, and slammed him to the ground. The tenants took a deep breath. What a cruel method. Zongguang felt a chill on his neck. Only Zhou and Tong Shueitao were very calm. They were both people who had seen the world. This was just a small matter. Gu Yundong clapped her hands and stood up. The two thieves had only been hit twice and could no longer sit up. The taste of blood filled their mouths, and their stomachs and heads hurt terribly. She looked up at Gu Yundong with narrowed eyes. It was as if she was looking at a female devil. It made people feel as if their lives were in danger at any moment. Gu Yundong looked down at them and asked, "Who's the mole? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 7:14, They Are Together the Mole? Everyone looked at each other. Only the two people's eyes flickered, and a trace of shock flashed past their eyes. Zongguang quickly took 2 steps forward. "Aunt, miss, what do you mean by the mole? There's no insider. How can you be so well prepared for your first time stealing?" Gu Yundong sneered. "No, it's not enough. It seems that the insider doesn't know this place very well, but it's definitely not just you. Where are your accomplices?" The two of them immediately denied it. However, they had just lost their teeth and their words were a little blurred. "Don't have an insider. No others. I don't know what you're doing. You're still not crying after seeing the coffin. Then let me see if your bones are really so hard." As Gu Yundong spoke, a cruel smile appeared on his face. The two of them instantly felt their scalps tingle. They had yet to understand what she meant. Gu Yundong suddenly kicked the two of them to the ground. Then, she stepped on one of their ankles and crushed them ruthlessly. A shrill cry like a pig being slaughtered sounded, piercing one's eardrums. Even Big Black, who was receiving treatment not far away, could not help but tremble. Gu Yundong frowned and said to Zhou, "Shut him up." "All right." Zhou stuffed the cloth ball into his gaping mouth. Then, he looked at the other person and asked, "Miss, do we need to shut up this person first?" Gu Yundong looked at him. The man looked at his companion's broken leg in shock. He finally understood what Gu Yundong meant. He was afraid. This woman looked weak and easy to bully, but she was more ferocious than any man present. She seemed to dare to do anything. This time, she had broken his companion's foot. Was she going to break his hand next? His life was more important. When the man saw that Zhou was really going to gag him after Gu Yundong nodded, the pain in his body instantly magnified infinitely. He hurriedly shouted, "I'll tell everything. Don't hit me." Gu Yundong let go of his leg and walked to the other person, ignoring the fact that he had fainted. "Speak." "Yes, it's Dr. Lu. We're in cahoots with Dr. Lu." Dr. Lu should be in Zhao village now. Everyone was stunned when they heard that. The tenants present all knew Dr. Lu. They had always felt that he was a very kind person who treated people for free. Only Zongguang, who had just returned from the Zhao village and already knew Dr. Liu's true appearance, came to a realization. So it was him. Yes, Dr. Lu had been here for 3 days. Although he had never entered the orchard and herb garden, he had walked around the periphery and knew about the existence of Big Black and the others. He also learned some things from the tenants. Therefore, he only knew a little. These two people took advantage of the time when Dr. Lu had lured Shao Qingyuan and Zongguang away from the Zhao village to steal the herbs in the herb garden. Yundong knew what she wanted to know and also beat them up. Although she was still angry, she stopped. She clapped her hands and got Zhou to cover his mouth again. Then, she said to Zongguang, "Send them to the officials." A tenant immediately said, "No, it won't be a crime even if they're sent to the government." They actually wanted to beat them up one by one. At the very least, they wanted them to suffer and learn a lesson. However, they were beaten up so badly now. If they attacked again, would they kill them? Yundong laughed. Since he's Dr. Liu's accomplice, he will definitely be convicted. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 7:15. Sneaking Zongguang. Yundong ignored the two of them and asked Zhou to send them to the officials with the tenants. She walked back to the herb garden. Shao Qingyuan turned to look at her. "Are you done venting? Does your hand hurt?" As he spoke, he took out a bottle of ointment. This ointment has the effect of reducing swelling, bruises, and pain. Apply it first. When Zongguang, who followed them out, heard this, his face could not help but twitch. Yundong did not take the ointment. "It's fine. There's no need to apply it. How's Big Black?" Fortunately, his life is not in danger. The vet wiped the sweat off his forehead and sighed. But the injury on his leg is a little serious. I'm afraid he won't be able to walk smoothly in the future. Yundong squatted in front of Big Black again. Perhaps it understood the vet's words, but the light in its eyes slowly dimmed. The fur around its wound had been shaved off, making it look a little strange. After the veterinarian treated Big Black, he asked someone to carry the wooden board with Big Black on it to the farmstead. Yundong looked at it lying there and felt depressed. After a long time, she returned to the manor with Shao Qingyuan. Zongguang got someone to clean up the herb orchard and orchard before hurriedly following. However, as soon as he entered the courtyard, he rushed towards the room where the three of them lived. After entering the house, Zongguang did not have time to wipe his sweat, and he rummaged around in the cabinet. After a while, he took out a key and opened the box. He took out a small paper bag. Then, he took a small paper bag into the small kitchen not far away and brought over the kettle that was boiling on the stove. He poured 2 glasses of water. He was in a hurry, and there was sweat on his forehead as if he was too nervous. This made Tong Shuitao, who was about to enter the kitchen, feel especially strange. She kept feeling that the steward of this manor was acting suspiciously and definitely had evil intentions. Therefore, Tong Shuitao quietly hid outside the kitchen and stared at him. Zongguang did not realize it. After he poured the water, he felt that something was missing. A moment later, he patted his head, opened the cupboard, and took out a small porcelain jar. There was white sugar in the small porcelain jar. Zongguang poured some into the cup. Finally, he took out the small paper bag from his sleeve. After opening it, he gritted his teeth and shook it all into one of the cups. Tong Shuitao, who was outside the door, widened her eyes in shock. What did this shui guy want to do? Could it be that he planned to pour 2 cups of tea for young Master Shao and his daughter? Tong Shuitao was so angry that her face turned red. As expected, he was not a good person. The stuff in that paper bag must be poison. Was he trying to poison mist to make way for his daughter? No, that wasn't right. He would have to go to jail even if he poisoned his master. He must have wanted to paralyze her. Tong Shuitao pursed her lips tightly. Seeing that Zongguang was about to come out, she quickly turned around and hid. She would personally expose his scheme in front of young miss and young master later. Tong Shuitao snorted and carefully followed behind Zongguang. Then, Zongguang walked out of the kitchen but did not go to the central room. Instead, he went in another direction. Finally, he stopped at the door of a room and knocked on the door with a cup of tea. Footsteps quickly came from inside, followed by Madame Wan's face. "Her father, why are you here?" Madame Wan asked softly. "Is everything all right in the herb garden?" Zongguang shook his head. "Everything is fine now." Then, he looked at Qin, who was still angry, sitting on the edge of the bed and sighed slightly. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 7:16, You Killed Her? When Qin saw him enter, she snorted coldly and turned her body to the side, not even looking at him. Zongguang's heart ached when he saw that the finger marks on her face had not disappeared. After putting the teacup on the table, he said softly, "Qiner, it's my fault today. I shouldn't have hit you." Humph. Qin's expression softened a little when she heard her father, who had always been domineering, apologize to her. Madame Wan also hurriedly said, all right. There's no overnight grudge between father and daughter. Qiner is also in the wrong. Let's let this matter pass. Let's not mention it anymore." Qin wanted to say that she was not in the wrong. So what if she admired her master? When she became her master's concubine in the future, her family would rise with the tide. She was doing this for her parents' own good. However, Madame Wan kept winking at her. She also knew that now was not the time to push her luck. She had to take it slow to change her father's mind. Hence, she nodded softly. "I don't blame father either. It's good that you don't blame me." Zongguang handed her a cup. "This is sugar water. Take it as my apology. Drink it and show that you forgive me, okay?" "Okay." Qin thought that her father still doted on her after all. Otherwise, why would he make such precious sugar water for her to drink? Hence, she became more confident in persuading him and marrying her master in the future. She was happy and drank the sugar water in one go. However, not long after she finished drinking, she suddenly felt a little dizzy and her eyelids were heavy. After a while, she said uncontrollably, "Father, mother, I want to sleep for a while." As soon as she finished speaking, she fell onto the bed. Madame Wan was shocked and quickly pushed her. Qiner, what's wrong? What are you shouting for?" Zongguang glared at her and took away the cup that Qin had left on the bed. Madame Wan was stunned. Seeing that he was not worried at all and was still moving slowly, she thought of the cup of sugar water just now. What else did she not understand? She looked at him in disbelief. You killed her? She's our only daughter. How dare you kill her?" Madame Wan was no longer afraid of him. She rushed up and wanted to fight him to the death. Zongguang turned to the side. "All right, what's with the fuss? Who killed her?" "She just drank some calming tea and fell asleep." "Look carefully." Madame Wan was stunned and quickly reached out to check under Qin's nose. As expected, her daughter was still breathing, and she immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she looked at her husband resentfully. "What are you doing? Why did you give her some calming tea for no reason? What else? Should we wait for her to go to young master's place in the middle of the night and do something shameless?" Madame Wan was shocked, and her expression instantly became unnatural. Her husband indeed knew their daughter very well. Just before Zongguang came, Qin was indeed trying her best to persuade her to help her fulfill her wish. After all, this was a rare opportunity. If young master left tomorrow, he might never come again. Madame Wan was not an opinionated person and was almost convinced. Unexpectedly, Zongguang decided to take drastic measures and let her sleep until tomorrow morning. Zongguang snorted. Why are you still standing here? Go to the kitchen and make dinner. Madame Wan left dejectedly. Only then did Zongguang look at Qing, who was lying unconscious on the bed. He sighed slightly, covered her with the blanket, and left the room, locking the door behind him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 480. Hooking his neck with one hand, Sylvan Chaney and Jasmine Yale walked along while on Maple Mountain. Jasmine was lost in the enchanting scenery and didn't feel tired at all. It was truly beautiful. Do you want to see more? If you do, I can have lunch brought over, Sylvan asked for her thoughts. Jasmine shook her head. Let's go back. I want to return to my rental. She hadn't been back to that little cottage in a long time. It was unclear when Payen would be able to return. The place was lonely and deserted. Don't go back there. I bought you an apartment in the city center. It's convenient to go anywhere, Sylvan proposed. I don't want it. She shook her head again. She truly did not want anything from Sylvan Chaney. She did not want his compensations. If she wanted an apartment, she could save up for it herself. Though it would take many years, it gave her a sense of security. You reject everything I offer. Are you trying to cut all ties with me? Accept what I give you. Sylvan's face darkened with displeasure. I can buy my own house. I used to earn quite a lot in Singapore. I'll save up slowly and eventually buy a house, Jasmine replied, her eyes wide. Buy it yourself? Fine, buy it yourself, Sylvan retorted angrily, his face soured. He knew this girl was stubborn. But he hadn't expected her to reject everything he offered. It wasn't just the house, but the bracelet he had gifted her before as well. In those 12 years, she rarely ever asked him for anything. Even buying a box of candy needed much consideration. He had said that he would give her anything she wanted. But she never asked him for anything. The feeling was far from pleasant. What use was it for him to earn all that money? Jasmine Yale was unclear about why he was angry, and casually said, I find girls like Anne Nolan quite good. She's from a well-off family, she is beautiful, and still works hard. That's because Zayden Santos would leave her one day, replied Sylvan sharply. Jasmine was taken aback. Why? Then why did they decide to get married in the first place? Mr. Chaney, your friend is quite despicable, Jasmine complained, infuriated. Birds of a feather, flock together? You and Nolan are close? No. If not, what doesn't have to do with you? Sylvan was visibly infuriated. She would rather show concern for someone she just met than engage in conversation with him. Jasmine was speechless and stopped pressing further. She, too, was somewhat angered. Why was Sylvan Chaney yelling at her when she hadn't said anything wrong? She knew he had a bad temper. Frustrated, she walked down the mountain. Not caring that it was still snowing, she went directly into the snow. The icy snowflakes landed on her face, but she didn't find it cold. Just a little tired. Spoiled, muttered Sylvan as he opened his umbrella and advanced towards her with large strides. Upon reaching her, he handed her the umbrella. Hold this. The next second, he scooped her into his arms. Hey! Jasmine was taken by surprise. Put me down. Hold on tight. If you fall, I won't take responsibility. I can walk by myself. After walking so much, aren't you tired? Not tired, Jasmine lied. In truth, she was a bit tired, coupled with her menstruation ongoing. But she never thought that Sylvan would carry her down the mountain. Even during those 12 years, he had never once carried her. For a moment, Jasmine was dazed. Even if you're not tired, I won't let you walk anymore, Sylvan spoke indifferently. With one hand around his neck and the other holding the umbrella, Jasmine was halfway in his arms. Shielded from the snowflakes by the large umbrella, it was calm and undisturbed. When she was close to him, she could clearly smell his scent, discreet and deep. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 718, Abandoned Young Master, this is for you. Zhou wiped its mouth and handed it to Shao Qingyuan. Then, it looked at him expectantly. Shao Qingyuan didn't think much of it at first. After accepting it and taking a closer look, he exclaimed, "Where did you get it?" "I found it in Dr. Liu's medicine basket." Zhou chuckled. The medicine basket was sent to the government office as physical evidence. As expected, the county magistrate found a doctor to examine it. However, the doctor only flipped through the top 2 layers of herbs and confirmed that they were useless weeds. There might be some herbs mixed in, but they were not worth much. Then, the county magistrate convicted Dr. Liu and asked them to sign on the documents. The matter was resolved. As for the medicine basket, it was filled with useless grass that would rot in a day or two, so the county office servants planned to pour it as garbage. Zhou saw that there was actually a herb under the herb basket. He had been by Shao Qingyuan's side for so long and more or less knew some of herbs. He immediately brought the herb back. "I'm not sure either. It just looks like it." "Young master, is this the Hongming you mentioned?" Shao Qingyuan nodded. "Yes, I didn't expect him to dig up a treasure." "Hongming?" Yundong felt that this herb sounded familiar. Shao Qingyuan said, "These are the medicinal herbs recorded in the medical book Dr. Song gave me. They are mainly used for clearing the eyes." "In that case, it was also a very precious medicinal herb?" Shao Qingyuan put it away and praised, "Not bad, you deserve praise." Zhu's eyes lit up and she quickly buried his head in his food. That night, the few of them rested in the manor before preparing to leave the next day. Yundong frowned slightly when she saw Big Black lying on the ground. After a night of recuperation, Big Black looked much better. It had a strong recovery ability and used good medicine. It had already tried to stand up. However, just as the vet had said, Big Black's leg was too injured to land on the ground. It would probably limp in the future. "I want to go to the Yuan family and tell Yuan Sheng about Big Black." "Alright, I'll go with you." Yundong asked Tong Shuai-Tao and the others to prepare the carriage and wait at the door while she and Shao Qingyuan walked towards the Yuan residence. The Yuan family was not far from the manor. It did not take long for the two of them to approach the entrance of the Yuan family. However, before the two of them could knock on the door, they heard Yuan Cheng's familiar voice from inside. "I don't agree. I want to keep Big Black. Even if it can only retire at home in the future, I won't abandon it." Yundong was surprised and could not help but look at Shao Qingyuan. Immediately after, another sigh came from the courtyard. From the sound of it, it might be Yuan Cheng's father. Cheng, can you not be so stubborn? I know you have a good relationship with Big Black, but it's already crippled. It won't be able to walk steadily in the future. It definitely won't be able to guard that orchard like Big Yellow and the others to scare off the thieves. However, it eats a lot. We can't afford to keep it anymore. The owner has given us money. Why can't we afford it? Father Yuan frowned. The owner did give you money, but don't you only have 2 dogs now? How can 2 dogs be enough in such a big herb garden? You definitely have to raise another one. Won't this Big Black eat and drink for free? In the past, it could enter the back mountain to hunt some wild chickens and rabbits, but now, do you think it can do it? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 719, Sorry Mother Yuan immediately made the decision. It's not like we don't want Big Black anymore. We're just sending it away for someone else to raise. Can't you just bring another dog back and nurture it? Your aunt has already said that Big Black can go to her house. Yuan Sheng suddenly raised his voice. Nonsense, why are you looking at the house? Mother, you clearly know that cousin Weikai was so frightened by Big Black in the past that he peed his pants. He hates Big Black to the core and wants to beat it to death with a stick every time he sees it. You even sent Big Black to eldest aunt's house. Let me tell you, if you send it over today, they will eat Big Black tomorrow. What are you saying? How rude. Your uncle is not such a person. Yuan Qing only sneered. Yundong could not take it anymore. She raised her head and knocked on the door twice. Yuan Qing did not move, and Mother Yuan was also angry. Only Father Yuan sighed and came over to open the door. Seeing the two people standing outside the door, he was immediately stunned. He hurriedly retreated half of his body and said, "Boss, why are you here? Quick, come in." Yuan Sheng and Mother Yuan suddenly came back to their senses and hurriedly welcomed them. They took stools and made tea. But Gu Yundong stopped them. "There's no need. We're here to ask your family for your opinion." The three members of the Yuan family were stunned for a moment. "Miss, please speak." "It's like this. Big Black was injured yesterday to protect the herb garden. Now that its legs are inconvenient, I'm afraid it can't continue to stay in the herb orchard in the future." When Yuan Sheng heard this, he immediately felt a little desperate. Even Lady Gu had said so. Was she planning to give up on Big Black? Unexpectedly, Gu Yundong's next sentence made his eyes light up. "No matter what, Big Black is a hero. We're really touched by its actions. Now that it's crippled, we can't ignore it. So, we want to take it away. What do you think?" Yuan Sheng was stunned and asked anxiously, "Take it away? Where to?" "Of course I'm bringing it home." Gu Yundong did not have this plan at first because Big Black had grown up here. It had a good relationship with Big Yellow and the others, and it had a deep relationship with Yuan Sheng. It would not be appropriate to bring it away. However, after hearing the Yuan family's words just now, she thought that nothing good would happen if Big Black continued to stay. Gu Yundong liked Big Black very much. She felt that perhaps it would be good to bring it back to Yongfu village. Yuan Sheng could not bear to leave. He had always slept with Big Black in the past. He was the saddest when something happened to Big Black. However, he was worried that he couldn't protect Big Black. His parents didn't want to keep it anymore, and Big Black was injured. What if his cousin hit it with a stick again? He was afraid that when he came home one day, Big Black would be sent away or beaten to death. Then, he would definitely regret it. Hence, when he heard Gu Yundong's request and recalled the scene of her interacting with Big Black yesterday, she gritted her teeth and nodded. Okay. Father and Mother Yuan naturally wouldn't say anything. Although eldest aunt really wanted to take Big Black away, the person who wanted the dog now was the boss. Their family was working for the boss, so they couldn't refuse at all. Since they had agreed, Gu Yundong did not stay any longer and left the Yuan residence with Shao Qingyuan. Yuan Qing followed them out. When they arrived at the manor, he ran to see Big Black first. When Big Black was carried onto the carriage by Tong Shuitao, he cried even harder. "I'm sorry, I'm useless. I can't even protect you. You'll definitely lead a better life with the boss in the future. You have to be obedient. The boss will take good care of you. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 720, Find You a Wife. Big Black was very intelligent. It seemed to understand Yuan Cheng's words. It immediately wanted to stand up, but Yuan Cheng stopped her. "If there's a chance in the future, I'll visit you. You have to be fine, understand?" Big Black whimpered, then barked. Each bark was louder and more excited. Its eyes were filled with anxiety, sadness, and uneasiness. Yuan Cheng immediately cried in grief. "Don't be like this. I've let you down." Tong Shuitao was also extremely sad as she watched from the side. She wiped her tears. For a moment, Gu Yundong felt that she was the evil person who had separated them. Her heart was in a mess. After a while, she went forward and patted Big Black's head. Don't worry. I'll bring you over when you've recovered to meet your friends can do it. Big Black liked her very much. It was very sensitive to the kindness of the human in front of it. Hence, he whimpered twice and stopped. Yuan Sheng said a lot more to it and hugged it reluctantly for a while. By the time the group set off, it was already past dawn. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan were in a carriage. Big Black was also lying in the carriage, but it looked a little listless. Gu Yundong spoke to it. All right, don't be unhappy. When we reach Yongfu village, I'll find you a wife. How about that? Shao Qingyuan, no one knew if Big Black understood her or not, but it raised its eyes slightly to look at her. Gu Yundong chuckled, her expression somewhat wretched. As they set off late, they took a detour back from the farmstead. In addition, Big Black was injured, so the carriage slowed down a lot. Therefore, when they arrived at Fengkai County, it was already the morning of the second day. Gu Yundong wanted to go back as soon as possible, so she did not delay in the county. However, when she passed by the entrance of Gus, she still stopped and lifted the curtain to look into the shop. Zhuangzi was not around. It was unknown if he had gone to the backyard or elsewhere. Only Chen Jinkai was busy in the shop. He was quite diligent. Even if there were no customers and the shopkeeper was not around, he did not stop to rest for a while. He took a cloth to wash and wipe things seriously. Jiang Bao, the shop assistant in the pharmacy next door, was also very diligent. He was pounding the medicine with a pestle, shaking his head happily. It was probably because he had just gotten engaged to Zhuangzi's sister, Lan Huar, not long ago. The two shops looked fine. Gu Yundong was relieved and asked Tong Shuitao to drive the carriage back. After entering Yongfu village, Gu Yundong suddenly felt like she was eager to return home. Beside him, Big Black perked up a little. Its ears twitched, as if it was listening to the sounds outside. Gu Yundong smiled and said, "This is where you will live in the future. When your legs are better in the future, you can go to the mountains to take a look. Behind our house is the foot of the mountain. It's very convenient." Big Black turned its head and glanced at her. After entering the village, the carriage slowed down. Gu Yundong lifted the curtain and looked out. She saw a mother and son walking in front of her. Hearing the sound of the carriage, the two of them quickly stood to the side. Just as the carriage passed by them, Gu Yundong suddenly heard one of them say something. "I've already told you that it's too late to come to the Gu family workshop today." Gu family workshop. Gu Yundong was not the only one. Tong Shuitao, who was driving the carriage, also slowed down and listened. "If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 721, You Have to Control Yourself. Gu Yundong lifted the curtain at the back of the carriage and looked out. The two of them did not care when they saw the carriage slow down. They only thought that it was because the village road was too narrow that the carriage was moving slowly. They didn't look like they were from Yongfu village, so they didn't know Tong Shuitao and the others. However, she lowered her voice. "Then the Gu family workshop was recruiting yesterday. If we come today, they definitely won't want you anymore. Tell me, why did you specially make a trip? You're so tired." The woman who spoke looked a few years older than Madame Yang. The person walking beside her should be her son. He looked fair and refined, but his body was a little thin. From what they said, they were applying for jobs at the Gu family's workshop. However, this young man did not look like he was good at work. It was as if he could not even lift a bucket of water. When the youth heard his mother's words, he was a little annoyed. "Mother, that's enough. I've already said that if you heard that the Gu family was recruiting again, you should have told me earlier. However, you just had to hide it from me. If you had told me yesterday, would we have missed this opportunity?" The woman was a little dissatisfied. "What's there to tell you? Why don't you take a look at your own status? You're an elementary scholar and you're knowledgeable. In the future, you'll take the high scholar examination and become an official. You're not studying at home for no reason, but you have to come to a small workshop in the village to find work. Have you become stupid from studying? Gu Yundong was surprised. He was actually a scholar. And an elementary scholar? It was not that Gu Yundong looked down on her own workshop, but based on the current situation, her small workshop should not be able to attract a scholar to work, right? Gu Yundong was a little confused and could not help but take a few more glances at the young man. However, before she could take a closer look, a pair of hands suddenly appeared in front of her and blocked her vision. Gu Yundong was stunned for a moment before she heard Shao Qingyuan's deep voice. Is he very good-looking? Huh? The voice was very close, and it sounded like he was gritting his teeth. Gu Yundong could clearly hear the jealousy in his tone. For some reason, she was in a good mood. She pulled his hand down, her eyes crinkling with laughter. Not as good-looking as you. Shao Qingyuan's body suddenly froze. A wave of frustration surged up, making his throat go dry. He suddenly reached back with one hand to cover the big black eyes that were curiously turning in his direction. His other hand wrapped around Gu Yundong's waist and pulled her tightly into his arms. Gu Yundong was surprised. The next moment, she felt a warmth in her ear and was gently bitten. She suddenly shuddered, and the blood in her body instantly boiled. This man, however, Shao Qingyuan had already let go of her. He turned his head and said to Tong Shuitao, "Hurry up." The carriage arrived at a spacious place and sped up in an instant. Shao Qingyuan turned around and met Gu Yundong's shining gaze. He coughed lightly and felt a little uncomfortable. I'm just reciprocating. If he was jealous, so be it. To hell with reciprocating. Gu Yundong snorted and reached out to rub his face. You have to control yourself. I'm not of marriageable age yet. Shao Qingyuan was speechless. You were the one who kissed me first. However, he smiled and said, you'll be coming of age next month. You'll be fine then. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 722, The Nest of the Bedham. Next month? So soon. Gu Yundong was in a daze when she realized that time had passed in a flash. She had been in Yongfu village for almost a year. Miss, we're home. Tong Shuitao's voice came from outside. Gu Yundong looked up at Shao Qingyuan, who was still waiting for her answer. He chuckled and jumped off the carriage. Help me carry Big Black in. Shao Qingyuan couldn't help but laugh. He was actually a little resentful that time had passed too slowly. He felt that it was too cold when he built such a big house. He only lacked a mistress at home. If only they could get married as soon as possible. He got out of the carriage and carried Big Black down. Tong Ping had already told them about Gu Yundong's return, so Madame Tong and her daughter-in-law had already prepared the room. The moment Gu Yundong entered, she instantly felt relaxed. She put away the things she had brought from the prefectural city. When she saw Shao Qingyuan carrying Big Black in, she immediately got busy making a nest for it. Father Tong wanted to take over, but Big Black had just arrived at an unfamiliar place and was still uneasy. His entire body was on guard, and he kept shrinking back. Gu Yundong could only let Father Tong go out first, indicating that she could do it with Shao Qingyuan. Currently, the conditions were limited. Gu Yundong wanted to make a simple nest for it to live in. Later, she would find a carpenter to build a wooden house for Big Black. No matter what, it would be a member of the family in the future. They had to take good care of it. Shao Qingyuan looked at Big Black enviously. He also wanted a nest, the kind of nest that was already a bed. He turned around and went out to get the big basket. There seemed to be one in the backyard. He should be able to use it for Big Black to sleep for the time being. He had just walked out of the door when he saw Tong and rushing over. When he heard that Gu Yundong was back, he hurried over to report his work. However, before she could step through the door, she heard a voice from outside. Is this the Gu family? We're here to look for work. Shao Qingyuan immediately guessed that it was the mother and son from before. He immediately said to Tongan, "Go and take a look. If they're not suitable, just send them away." Tongan was stunned. He subconsciously turned around and left. However, after taking a few steps, he felt that something was amiss. Why did it sound like young Master Shao really hoped that the person who came was not suitable? However, Tongan also felt that it was inappropriate. He had already released the news about the recruitment the day before yesterday. It had already ended yesterday. The other party had only arrived today, making people feel that they did not take him seriously. Tong An's first impression was not good, but he did not expect the other party to be an elementary scholar. After all, talents were rare. The workshop was filled with farmers, and there were not many who could read. The other party was an elementary scholar, so Tongan felt that he could still consider the application appropriately. If the man really stayed, the workshop might be able to attract more well-educated people in the future. Yundong naturally heard that cry, but she did not care. It was agreed that the first round of recruitment would be handed over to Tongan, even if the other party was a knowledgeable elementary scholar. She did not intend to interfere. If the elementary scholar passed Tong An's assessment, Yundong would just have to wait and see. She only took the basket from Shao Qingyuan. This basket was very big and not tall. Even with big black size, it could completely fit in. Yundong had placed an old and unused blanket and some clothes under it. They were all clean and soft. She stretched out her hand and tested it. When she felt that it was okay, she let Big Black in. Unexpectedly, a sharp cry suddenly came from outside. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 723, Do you not have a mouth? Why don't you want my son? My son is an elementary scholar. He's knowledgeable and capable. If you want those bumpkins, why can't you want my son? The woman's voice was a little loud. Tongan did not expect her to suddenly become so agitated. He immediately wanted the two of them to leave, but the woman had already shouted inside, Boss Gu, quickly come out, right? You manager is not good people. He's afraid that my son is an elementary scholar who has the ability to snatch his position. He actually doesn't allow my son to come to the workshop to work. My son is an elementary scholar, an elementary scholar. Yundong and Shao Qingyuan looked at each other and shrugged helplessly. Let's go out and take a look. Tongan was furious. He had really underestimated the mother and son. This woman actually sat on the ground and did not leave. He immediately wanted to get someone to chase them out, but Yundong had already come out. She glanced at the madam sitting on the ground, then at the fair youth, and suddenly laughed. Your mother is sitting on the ground. Aren't you going to help her? The young man looked a little embarrassed. He quickly went forward and wanted to help the woman up. The woman snorted and looked at Yundong. Who are you? I want to see Boss Gu. I am she. The woman was stunned. She had heard that the eldest daughter of the Gu family was in charge of the Gu family's workshop, but she did not expect to see such a weak-looking woman. Wasn't the boss supposed to be a tigress with a ferocious aura that could intimidate men? When the young man heard this, he helped his mother up even more anxiously. Mother, stop making a scene. The woman stood up unwillingly. Only then did Yundong look at Tongan. What happened? Miss, this gentleman wants to work in the workshop. However, the conditions are a little high. Right after Tongan said that, he heard the woman's raised voice. How are the conditions high? My son is an elementary scholar. If he works here as an accountant, his monthly salary will only be 5 taels a month. How is that high? Boss Gu, don't listen to his nonsense. I think he treats my son as a threat to his position, so he rejects my son with an excuse. Yundong waved her hand, as if she did not want to hear what the woman had to say. She looked at the young man and asked, Your mother said that you're an elementary scholar, right? That's right. Yundong smiled. Since you're an elementary scholar, you're naturally knowledgeable. Why don't you go to the county city to find work? Even if you don't become a teacher in a rich family, those shops should want you, right? Why do you have to come to a small workshop like mine that has only been open for less than a year to be an accountant? This young man looked to be around 20 years old. He was already an elementary scholar at such a young age, which meant that he was indeed talented. The young man was still hesitating when the woman shouted again, "Why? My son is just, don't you have a mouth? You keep letting your mother answer questions for you?" The woman was stunned, and a trace of embarrassment flashed across the young man's face. He quickly said, "I heard that the Gu family's workshop has good benefits and high wages, so I came to look for work." Gu Yundong smiled and shook her head. "No matter how good the benefits are, it's just a small workshop. If you don't want to tell the truth, you can leave." After saying that, she turned around and left. The young man immediately panicked. "Wait. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 724. Whoever hires him is an idiot. Gu Yundong paused and turned to look at him. The young man tugged at his fingers. "Independent Illinois, just tell the truth. I'd like to hear the details." The young man gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, Although I'm an elementary scholar, am not good with words. Previously, I did want to go over and be a teacher, but I couldn't speak the moment I met a student. In the end, I could only give up. Later on, I went to the shops in the county city and thought of being a bookkeeper, but the salary given by those shops was too little. Then, I heard that the Gu family's workshop has good benefits and can even cover accommodation, so I wanted to come over and give it a try. Although I'm not very good at talking, my title as an elementary scholar is real. Don't worry about this. Gu Yundong lowered her eyes as she listened. When the young man was done, she nodded slightly. Yes, I understand. You can go back. What do you mean? Our workshop doesn't intend to hire you. The young man panicked. Why? I'm an elementary scholar. Gu Yundong found it funny. So what if he was an elementary scholar? Could it be that the title of an elementary scholar was a pass? Then why did he have to come to a small workshop like hers when he could not find work elsewhere? Because you're not the type of accountant I want? What type of accountant do you need? Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and glanced at the young man before turning to leave. The young man was indignant. Miss, can you make yourself clear? This time, Tong'an no longer had any worries. He directly called out to Tong Shuetao and asked her to carry the woman who wanted to sit on the ground and cry out. He also dragged the young man out of the Gu family. There were still people watching the commotion at the entrance of the Gu residence. When they saw that the mother and son had been chased out, they quickly pointed at them. The woman was thick-skinned, but the young man could not take it. Although he was unwilling, he still fled a moment later. Tong'an sneered and then ran to look for Gu Yundong. He was also a little puzzled. Miss, why didn't you hire that young man? Tong'an didn't agree because the young man's gaze was very disdainful when he spoke to him. No matter how amiable he appeared, his arrogance was still extremely uncomfortable. Most of the long-term workers in the Gu family's workshop were farmers. If this elementary scholar continued to have such an attitude, he would probably cause a huge conflict with the people in the workshop. Tong'an did not plan to hire this young man because of this consideration. However, when the young man saw the young lady, he was very humble and had a good attitude. He completely looked like he was following the young lady. However, Miss still chased him out without hesitation. Gu Yundong said as she fed Big Black, because I gave that young man 2 chances, and he was lying. He was not likable to begin with, and he even had a mother who was a burden. In the end, he was full of lies. Whoever hires him will be a fool. Lies? Gu Yundong left the house and said to Tong'an, he's an elementary scholar. He's so young, which means that he has a bright future ahead of him. There are many wealthy families in our county. There must be some shrewd rich masters who are interested in his future and are more or less willing to bet on him. Even if he doesn't, if he goes to a shop to find work, there will be owners who are willing to hire him as an accountant. Although 5 taels of silver a month is a lot, it's really too much. Moreover, there's still room for bargaining. I don't believe that he won't be able to find a job like this. Tong'an was enlightened. Then why did he come to our workshop? I don't know if there's something wrong with him or if he has other motives. Yundong sighed faintly. There was no choice. The tallest tree attracts the wind. Who asked her shop to be too popular? Even with Qin Wenzheng's protection, there were always people who wanted to find out. For example, the Xian residents. Go back and ask around. Yes. Tong'an's entire body trembled, and he instantly felt that he had a heavy responsibility. Let's go. Bring me to the workshop first and tell me what happened at home during this period of time. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 725. Pregnant Yundong went to wash her hands and asked Tong Shui Tao to take good care of Big Black. Shao Qingyuan also went back first. He had to deal with the herb that Zhou had brought him. When the people at the Gu family's entrance saw Yundong come out, they wanted to go forward and say a few words. One of them wanted to work in the Gu family's workshop, but was rejected by Tong'an. However, those who did not dare to retort loudly in front of Tong'an did not dare to speak when they saw Yundong. Hence, they could only watch as the two of them walked further and further away. As Tong'an walked, he recounted everything that had happened in the past half a month. The two young masters are doing well in the school. A few days ago, young master got the top 3 in the test at the beginning of the month. Young master was extremely happy. He even said that if he gets first place the next time, he will be rewarded by the teacher. Young cousin master is also very hard-working in his studies. He has made great progress. He didn't say what rank Bian Yuanji got, so it shouldn't be too high. Yundong knew this in her heart. After all, she had entered school late and had a weak foundation. To her, it was already a little difficult to keep up with the teacher's lecture. However, it's been very strange these past 2 days. Young master and young cousin master have been going into the kitchen and saying that they want to learn how to cook. No matter how we persuade them, they won't tell us the reason. Yundong was surprised. Yunshu and Yuanji were going into the kitchen. What was going on? It seemed like she had to ask the 2 little ones properly after school. Everything is fine at home. Also, my sister-in-law is pregnant again. Yundong stopped in her tracks and asked in surprise, really? Yes, she just saw a doctor yesterday. This is a joyous occasion. It's worth celebrating. The Tong family did not have many children. Tong Shuitao was the only one in her generation. She was already so old this year and did not have any siblings. Tong'an had been hurt before, and others did not know if he would get married and have children in the future. Hence, wasn't it a joyous occasion for the Tong family to have a new member? Yundong reckoned that when little Peach found out, she would be overjoyed. After explaining the Gu family's situation, Tong'an started talking about the people in Yongfu village. The Zheng family's days were getting better and better. Madame Dong's brothers, who had not been around much in the past, had also been especially diligent recently, especially since the Gu family's workshop recruited workers yesterday. They had practically stayed in the Zheng family's house and refused to leave. Unfortunately, although Madame Dong did not have a strong personality, she was also a principled person. She knew what kind of people her brothers were. Introducing them to the workshop was to cause trouble for Yundong. Because of this, Madame Dong's brothers scolded her for being a heartless ingrate. Now that she was rich, she forgot about her brothers and only thought about living a good life. She would be struck by lightning in the future. Then, Zheng Hu, who was already agile, chased them out with a stick. The Zheng family's life was indeed getting better and better. Zheng Hu and his wife were working in Yundong's workshop. They did not have much land to begin with and had already rented it out. The couple worked hard and increased their wages. Zheng Jia had already gone to the private school in the neighboring village to study. According to Zheng Hu, he would send Zheng Lu over in 2 years. The private school did not have a high tuition fee. Although it was a little strenuous to provide for the two children, the Zhang family's life was getting better and better. It did not matter if it was a little tough. Zhang Yu was a girl and could not go to school. She helped out at home. However, Zhang Jia would teach her how to read every day when he returned from the private school. Zhang Yu was also hardworking and often came to the Gu family to ask Shinsidian about embroidery. At the mention of Shinsidian, Gu Yundong could not help but ask, "Where did she go? I haven't seen her since I came back." If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 726, Affection is Gone. An unnatural look flashed across Tong An's face. Gu Yundong did not notice and continued to walk forward. Only then did Tong An take a few steps forward and say, "She went to the county city today to sell her embroidery work." "Really? How's her embroidery sales these days?" Tong An quickly lowered his head and said softly, "Well, I'm not too sure." Gu Yundong nodded and did not ask further. After all, there were differences between men and women. It was indeed inappropriate for Tong An to ask too much about Shinsishan's private matters. She changed her mind and asked about other things. Tong An exhaled slightly before continuing. The Zhang family was getting better and better now. It was said that they would renovate the house next year and plan to build 2 more rooms. At that time, they would give each of the children a room. Compared to the Zhang family, the Shi family had changed even more. Not only did the Shi couple manage the orchard for Gu Yundong, but they also earned a lot of money. Coupled with Zhuangzi, who was now the shopkeeper, the changes in the Shi family were visible to the naked eye. During this period of time, the Shi family had already been renovating the house. In addition, Lan Hua and Jiang Bao had just gotten engaged and were about to get married next year. However, Lan Hua did not have a proper boudoir of her own. The Shi couple wanted her to get married in a grand manner, so the first thing they renovated was Lan Hua's boudoir. Now that Lan Hua matter was settled, Zhuangzi was still alone. The Shi couple was very anxious. Their neighbors and friends stared at Zhuangzi as if he was fat meat. They wished they could tie him up and make him their son-in-law. This was a shopkeeper. He had become the head shopkeeper of a county shop at such a young age. He was too promising. Moreover, the Shi couple had a good personality and were not domineering. His sister-in-law was about to get married and they were even renovating the old house. Which woman would not enjoy life after marrying him? However, Zhuangzi was unwilling no matter what. He simply did not come back after his family said too much. During the past 10 days, he had been living in the county shop for half of the time. If there was anything, he would ask Chen Jinkai to help pass on a message. Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry when she heard that. This was a career-type man, completely devoted to work. Speaking of Chen Jinkai, Tong An suddenly thought of something. Madame Fong even returned to Yongfu village and ran to the village chief's house to cause a scene. It could be said that she ruined her last relationship with the Chen family. What did she do? She said that Jiang Yongkong was not nice to her and scolded her every day. She asked the village chief to help divorce him. However, the village chief is in an awkward position right now. He's neither from Madame Fang's maternal family nor from her husband's family. Madame Fang is no longer a member of Yongfu village either. He couldn't care less about her, so he asked her to talk to her maternal family. Seeing that he was unwilling to help, Madame Fang cursed him for his lack of conscience and kept slandering him. In the end, Madame Zhou couldn't take it anymore and went up to slap Madame Fang twice. The two of them started fighting. Later on, for some reason, Madame Fang accidentally bumped into Chen Jinkai's 12-year-old son. His son's head hit the door frame on the spot, scaring the entire family. Fortunately, the doctor said that it was nothing serious. Only then did the Chen family heave a sigh of relief. However, they had completely drawn a line with Madame Fang and would pretend not to know this person from now on. When Gu Yundong heard this, she sighed with emotion. The Fang family was really walking further and further down the path of courting death. As they spoke, the two of them had already arrived at the entrance of the Gu family's workshop. When she saw Gu Yundong enter, everyone in the workshop greeted her. They looked very happy. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible.